Humans! Porthos here, and you're watching the Shuttle Pod Show. Who's a good boy? I'm a good boy. Yes, I am.
And I brought her up and I said, Mom, I want you to meet Stan Lee. And she says, I want you to know you had more to do with raising my son than I did.
Aww.
And Stan said, the last woman who told me that, her son was in Sing Sing.
Gonna go and do my convention thing. Got my costume, I'm going now. Yeah, we're having a ball. It's Star Trek, y'all. Hey, down the border, beam me up.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Shuttle Pod Show. Today we have very special guest, Doug Drexler. We'll be answering your fan questions, playing some Star Trek trivia, finding ourselves on Connor's remote island, and much more. This is our second live conversation, so we hope you guys all have some fun. I'm Erica LaRose, but before we move on, we have a special message from producer Mark.
Actually, due to popular demand, we have a message from Andrew Robinson.
Oh, thank God.
Like, subscribe, and join us on Patreon.
Thanks, Sandy!
That's funny.
Nothing like live TV.
I don't know that word. Live,
Dominic
yes.
KEATING.
Oh, I'm going to need a bigger intro than that. Do that
And now
again.
for your hosts, Connor TRINNEER and Dominic KEATING.
Oh, don't fuck it up. Oh, the first F-bomb. Boom! And off we go.
That was in the first 10 seconds.
Hello, love.
Hi.
See you again.
Nice to see you.
I like
day
your
in a
green
row.
dress. I think
Thank
it's
you.
very
I'm
very
vibing
fitting.
with your hat a little bit right now.
Exactly. It's a nice color.
Yeah.
You should wear that.
We can try it on later.
I don't
We
know.
could
Well,
switch
let's
hats
do
and
that
dresses.
at the break.
Well, there's a thought. In this day and age.
Oh, God.
All righty. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers, welcome back to the Shuttle Pod Show. I am your co-host, as Erica said, Dominic Keating, coming to you live from our new studio here in sunny Burbank, California. By way of introduction of our truly wonderful guest in the Golden Throne this afternoon, I'm going to slightly embellish an absolutely beautiful quote about him from our dear friend Ira Stephen Bear. And it goes a little like this. To know Doug Drexler, you have to go beyond the obvious. Sure, he's a supremely talented illustrator, graphics designer, makeup artist, a sculptor, a CGI whiz, an Oscar winner, a BAFTA winner, a two-time Emmy Award winner, a Saturn Award winner. He's all that and then some. But to truly know Doug, you have to look him in the eyes. If you look closely, you'll see a Merlin the Magician looniness lurking just beneath the surface. He knows things about the universe that we can't even imagine. He really is. When they made Doug, they broke the mold. So fly me to the moon, Drexler. Let me play among the stars.
You're singing for me.
Show me everything from Jupiter and Mars. Welcome to the Shuttle Pod Show, Mr.
Yes,
Doug
yes,
Drexler.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
The double D!
That's one of my favorite.
That's a
that
lovely
quote
Ira
is
quote, isn't
hilarious,
it?
yeah.
Yeah. When I read that, I was like, okay, I'm going to
Ira
use
is
that.
quite the character.
Yeah, he
Quite
sure
the
is.
Character.
He speaks very highly of you.
He's
and
awesome.
it's lovely to have you here. It's been
Thank you.
ages since we've seen each other.
Yes, been a while.
And my word, what a career you've had, Mr. Drexler.
It's crazy. Sometimes I think I've, lying on the road somewhere bleeding out. And this, and
Well, if you do that,
you want it on the show.
Look at that. That's our first Oscar on the show.
toward me.
He made us put white gloves on to handle that, by the way.
As well you should.
As well you should.
I have a.
The BAFTA, not so much. I could just pick that up.
After I got this thing, I was going back east to show my friends and family. I knew I had to bring it with me. And I had it in my carry-on. And I'm watching the woman at the x-ray thing, and it goes zzz, 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 zzz. And she says, "Is that an Academy Award?" And I'm like, she says, "Can I take it out?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she takes it out and holds it up, and there's like 1,000 people waiting in line, and everyone bursts into applause. It was an awesome moment. Awesome.
LeVar Burton, I know, used to just
LeVar.
rib you every time you come on
Every
set.
time. I'm not just Doug
Academy
Drexler.
Award winner.
I'm Academy Award winning Doug Drexler.
And you know what? Well, you should be.
Didn't he bump into you on Ventura Boulevard
Yes,
one time?
I was walking down Ventura Boulevard, and some guy came around the corner and literally ran into me. And we look at each other, and it's LeVar. And he turns to the entire street and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Academy Award winner," every time. And then, of course, Michael Dorn used to, love to yell my name.
God bless.
Drexler, 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 Drexler. And he thought it was a terrific Klingon name.
Yeah.
And I ran into Ira one day. I had my crew jacket and it said Drex. And he goes, "Drex?" I go, "Yeah, that's, a nickname that some people call me." Michael Dorn said it's a great Klingon name. And he goes, "Oh." And the next day, there was a Klingon called Drex.
Oh, nice.
Of course, Worf kills him.
He wasn't going to be on forever.
Writers, man, they use everything, don't they? So, I mean, I don't even know where to start, Doug. There's a photo of you in your bedroom in 1968, black and white photo with your buddy Mitch.
I have to thank my sister.
And I think you're making something.
Yeah, it was an AMT kit.
And there's not a picture of one rock band. There's no David Bowie. There's nothing.
Well,
it's just Spock.
Well, that's true, but
And the Ramones.
Another part of the wall, I did have a poster of Raquel Welch in the fur bikini.
You did.
Yeah.
From
We all had
10,000
that
BC.
one.
Yeah. And I also had a picture of Brigitte Bardot.
Oh yeah.
And when I got to know Barbara Luna, who if you haven't had her,
Oh, God. We
she
haven't
is
yet, but we
so
love Barbara.
much fun. She's one of my closest friends. And to think, she was always my Star Trek crush.
Yeah,
Star
right.
Trek babes. And she's ended up being one of my very best friends. And, I've been through some tough things and she's helped me. But I was telling somebody else with Luna sitting there that when I was growing up, my three crushes were Raquel Welch, Brigitte Bardot, and Barbara Luna. And Luna says, "I don't like my billing."
I'm above the title.
She's wonderful. We just saw her in Vegas. She looks
Oh my
amazing.
God. She's incredible. Well, you know what it is about her? She has such a wonderful, optimistic, often childlike attitude that she just doesn't age.
No.
Yeah, agreed.
Truly.
And I've never seen her depressed. I've never seen her cranky. She's always wonderful, always funny.
She's got a good doctor. So you are the original fanboy for the show.
I really am.
You're from Long Island.
Well, I was born in New York City, but my parents moved out to Long Island when I was like 5 years old. And, I guess when I was 11, the New York World's Fair, 64 World's Fair, opened in Queens.
Yeah.
And my father had a TV repair store. See, he was in the business, but on the other side of the screen. He would drop me off at the fair twice a week for 2 summers, give me some money, and pick me up at 10 o'clock at night. And I'd be on my own at 11 years old, which that was the freedom. But on the other hand, I think about it today and I'm like, maybe he was trying to get rid of me. Maybe he just won't come back.
Was the World's Fair back around that time? Because they had the World's Fair also, I think, in like 1978 in Spokane, Washington. But for the most part, the World's Fair was like a technology extravaganza introduction to the world of things that were going on.
Well, I mean, at that
the
time,
new gadgets.
now you have television and you have internet and companies and can show their stuff off without doing a World's Fair.
All right.
I think the 64, 65 World's Fair was probably one of the most ambitious World's Fairs ever, especially in the United States. It was only 20 years after World War II.
Right.
And America it was not a level playing field by any stretch of the imagination. American companies were like raking it in. I mean, the rest of the world had been pounded flat practically.
Right.
So much money went into that fair. It was stunning. I mean, to me, it makes Epcot look like a tinker toy.
Truly.
Really.
The park is still extraordinary.
The park is beautiful, and the Unisphere is still there.
Yep.
And then the New York State Pavilion, which Starbase 11 from the original series was based on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at it, like almost like Jetsons buildings.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, because of the I love that look, and I've often injected the World's Fair into Star Trek, but they didn't want me doing the New York State Pavilion because every time Rick Berman would see it, he would say the Jetsons, and he wouldn't, But so the fair was like a huge, huge, huge impact on me, and I think it was the first time I realized that there are people who are actually doing this. Building models and doing, Doug Trumbull had a film there, it was a trip to the moon. I was utterly blown away, and I think for the first time I saw that there are people who have a career doing this type of stuff, And then the thing about the fair was that it was only there for 2 years. And if Walt Disney said, I'm building Epcot,
Right.
but I'm tearing it down after 2 years, you would not even believe it.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what they did. And I was heartbroken, although they had these street lights that looked like kind of like Tetris. And as a kid, I wanted one so bad. And how's a kid going to get one? But I found one on eBay about 6 years ago, and I bought it and I restored it and I put it in my backyard.
You had a store as a young boy, didn't you? The Federation trading
well,
store?
I mean,
With
we
your
had
buddy
a Star Trek store in
Rob, is
Manhattan.
it? Yeah.
At Rob
Moreau?
Rob Barlow.
Marlowe.
It was in one of the most unlikely places on the corner of 53rd and 3rd, which is like prime real estate. I don't know how.
How did you get that?
The guy who opened it, he had a store in Berkeley, California. And so I don't know how he ever worked it out to have a place on, like that there. Usually a store like that ends up in East Village.
Right.
You can walk
Well, I was
down
going
like
to
a
say,
basement.
right.
But this was like right in Midtown.
Was he funding you? And was that the idea? Or did you set this store up on your own?
Well, we
steam?
set up the whole store, but
right.
he arranged for the place and how he paid for it, I don't know. It was at a time where Star Trek was just a failed television show,
Right.
and Paramount wasn't even looking,
Right.
and there weren't that many products that you could have either, and what there wasn't that good. I mean, there was Stephen E. Whitfield, Stephen Poe's making a Star Trek, and then there were AMT kits, and then there were some of the, Alan Dean Foster books. But there really wasn't a whole lot. Uniforms tended to be really horrible, and you could get a helmet that says Spock on the front with a whirligig light on top.
That's going to get you the girls. That's going to get you the girls.
Have you still got it?
I wish I had it. I hated all that stuff when I was a kid. I was so offended because Star Trek was so serious. I was a very literate kid. I had read all the science fiction, classics. And
The Asimov and the like. And,
I loved Edgar Rice
Bradbury.
Burroughs and John Carter
Clarke
of Mars and, Isaac Asimov and Harlan Ellison and Star Trek. There were Twilight Zone, of course, is amazing. And the Old Outer Limits did some really great stuff. But for the most part, Lost in Space, which I'm very nostalgic about. But at the time, even it was made for kids, but I was a kid and I wasn't buying it,
It's clunky a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I have, I watched it mostly for Will, Dr. Smith, and the robot.
Robbie the robot.
I have a full-size robot in my house.
Do you really?
Yeah. A friend of mine built it, and he couldn't keep it anymore, and I bought it from him.
His wife said.
Oh, it's really cool. And I also have in my garage a full-scale My Favorite Martian, Uncle Martin spaceship. It's 20 feet long in my garage.
Wow.
What inspired all of this for you?
As a little kid, you get started with comic books, and I was a big Marvel geek as a kid. I loved Stan Lee, and as a matter of fact, and I have a story about Stan Lee at the Federation Trading Post, so when I, started going to school, most kids made fun of comic books and made fun of science, and all of that stuff was looked at as being lowbrow in the late 50s and early 60s. I mean, there were, during the McCarthy era, there were communist witch hunts where they had comic book publishers on the stand being grilled by lawyers.
About their content.
Yeah, about their content. There was
subversive.
Well, there were a lot of horror. EC, Entertaining Comics, the only EC comic left is Mad Magazine.
Oh.
Mad Magazine was a comic book.
Oh, yeah.
And that aside from Mad, EC was doing some of the best comics ever done. They did a bunch of horror comics like Tales from the Crypt and The Vault of Horror, and then they did science fiction, stuff that still today, some of it is some of the best ever done. But they had decided that there was a book called The Seduction of the Innocent that said that comic books created serial killers and murderers and stuff like that.
Oh, like video games.
Yeah.
But I love that stuff. I wasn't a sports guy. I couldn't catch a ball. If the ball came at me, it would go right past my glove and hit me in the head. I couldn't. It just wasn't me. And I was into my science fiction and fantasy stuff, and so I took a lot of, crap.
Was your father into sci-fi and comic books?
Not particular, but he wasn't into sports either. So it wasn't like, come on, son, let's catch.
Right.
We
The
never-
Jets.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I mean, I
Yes.
never.
How long
Did
was
you
it
have a
the-
community of friends that you would, gather at the comic book store? And
Well, I mean,
You
there
meet
were-
Jeff Mandel there, don't you?
Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff was like later at the Federation Trading Post, and and Jeff is like has been a graphic artist on Star
Yes.
Trek, and he came into the store, Federation Trading Post, one day with blueprints he did, and he was like 13 years old, and they were unbelievable. Wow. And we started printing his blueprints and selling them in the store. We made a lot of the stuff we sold there. We had, slide sets that, Majel Roddenberry had Lincoln Enterprises, the mail order company that she had.
right.
And I had like thousands of slides. I mean, when I was a kid, and I wrote fan letters to the show, and they always sent me pictures of the ship and the cast and stuff like that. And then I, one day in the mail, got this one sheet for all these Star Trek items. You could get the badges, you could get scripts. Oh my God, scripts. I mean, to think about
Really?
that.
You could get
Yes,
scripts?
you could get scripts. And I'm talking 1967. Menagerie was a two-parter was like $15 or something, but otherwise I think they were about
Quite a lot of
$7.
money back then, 15
For a kid,
Yeah.
that was a lot of money. So I would save all my money, and send away. And I had.
Oh, no kidding.
She was going down to editorial and picking up all the leftover stuff and taking it home. And she had people snipping them into envelopes and selling 10 slides for $1.
That's amazing.
And I still have my loose leaf binders full of slides from then.
Original slides.
Original slides that were
brilliant.
from they're not duplicates. And so, we took my slide collections and we made slide sets and we printed posters and the store, actually the truth is that for the first few months, the store was dying and the neighborhood merchants were laughing at us, right at us. And one day I remember I got in one guy's face, I overreacted a little bit. And we saved up our money and we ran, it was a slide. It was like 10-second slide, Federation Trading Post, the only Star Trek store in the universe, blah, 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 blah. The next day, there was a line down the block of people waiting to get in. And here was a failed TV show. However, it was now in syndication, and they're showing it every day on WPIX in New York.
Right.
And people are falling in love with it. Now, of course, there were always people who, like myself, who knew it was a very unusual show. And not only that, as far as being progressive, you can't, if you're a young person today and you watch it, you don't see how forward-thinking that show was. In 1966, to have a multiracial crew on the bridge and women was unheard of. I mean, everyone had been watching war movies and World War II documentaries, and it was just, men and Americans. You had a Japanese at the helm, 20 years after World War II. It was really...
And a Russian.
And I mean, it was so unusual, and especially women at the time.
An African-American girl,
Yeah.
doing a proper job.
Yeah.
And the Whoopi Goldberg line's famous, isn't it? Mom, there's a black lady on TV. She ain't no maid.
But I mean,
Yeah.
really, the show Star Trek has changed a lot of people's lives, and I have friends who are, scientists and astronauts, and they would come down and visit the show. And I was there when Stephen Hawking came in, and I was there when he asked to be lifted out of his wheelchair and put in Patrick Stewart's
Brilliant.
chair.
Wow.
I was there when we took him into engineering and turned on the warp core, and he said, "I'm working on this now." And everyone laughed, and then the laughter just kind of trailed off. 'cause they realized he's not kidding.
We had Bill Gates come to our set. Do you remember when Bill showed up?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
That was a
really
big day.
amazing. Ken Carpenter, Hubble telescope. The people. I mean, if I go out to JPL, I'm like a rock star.
Am I kidding?
Yeah.
And everyone has Mike's Elcar's graphics on. And I got to say, what Mike did with those graphics. When I first saw the show, I was so impressed by the ship, but it was Mike's graphics that made you believe that there really was something going on, that if you pulled a panel off, there'd really be stuff there. And it gave the Starfleet a sense of organization. And when I came to work as a makeup artist in the 3rd season, right after Dick Tracy, the first thing I did was go over to Mike Westmore and beg him to let me work on Star Trek. He's like, but why? You're doing features. And I'm like, no, Mike, you don't understand. It's always been about Star Trek. I need to be on Star Trek. And we talked about this a couple of months ago, and he said, well, that hiring you was a no-brainer.
What drove you from, going to the comic book store? Did you always have this in mind, this ethos about sci-fi, Star Trek? Where did it take you?
You and Jeff, you hatched a plan. You came out to Paramount.
So we
tell that
snuck on the
story.
Paramount backlot.
Yeah, that's how it all kicked off.
Well, but to answer what you're saying here is like, I wasn't hip to the kids. I was a weirdo. I didn't play sports, and they didn't like comic books, and they didn't like science fiction. So that's where I wanted to be. You're all over there. I'm over here. I like this stuff, So that I always felt like it kind of saved me a little bit, I had my friends in the books, and and then I eventually met other people. Jeff Mandel. I mean, we were. There's no doubt that of course, Star Wars went a long way to convince Paramount because they had been trying to do a new show. There was Star Trek Phase 2. When Star Wars hit, they're like, don't we have a space thing? Yeah. And that's when first it was a TV show, and then it got upgraded to a movie. And
the animated series was...
Well, an animated series was really good, and I think it actually won an Emmy. It really was pretty terrific for when you consider the kind of stuff that usually was on Saturday mornings. So yeah, they were going to do this movie, and the whole idea that they were going to do a movie, and we just had to get a peek at it.
You blagged your way onto the lot. How did you get on?
Yeah, well, first we did stupid stuff that would never work in a million years. We would go around the whole perimeter of Paramount looking for a hole in the wall, and then we would look for cars that looked like maybe they worked here and leave a note. Please help us get in. No one ever helped us.
No one ever
You hadn't moved. Had you moved here?
No, not yet.
No,
You just come out to
We
see
came out
if
just
you-
for that.
prayer.
And so we managed to get 2 invitations. One was got through to the art department, which Harold Michelson was a production designer who became a great friend of mine when we did Dick Tracy, because he was on Dick Tracy with the great Dick Silbert.
I want to talk about Dick.
That's what brought
Smith,
us out
right?
here.
Yeah.
Oh, Dick Smith.
We'll get to that. Anyway,
we got Lee Cole, who was a graphic designer on the motion picture, and we actually... She was on Enterprise with us for a while, and I said, Lee, you probably don't remember this. She got us onto the lot, but we also had an invitation. Howard Anderson was also on the lot, and called him up and said, no one can know much about visual effects without knowing who Howard Anderson is. Boy, would we love to visit. And they're like, come on in. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Why didn't you say so? Come on in. And we went to Howard Anderson first, and then we went up to the art department where we met Lee.
How old are you at this point? 20-something?
Yeah, I guess 25 or something like that, I guess.
Just a band.
And I wasn't in the business at all yet.
And Jeff tells a lovely story going back to his mom and telling him, so listen, you can get paid for... She's like, yeah, nice try, kid.
Yeah.
Right.
But so after we talked to Lee, she said, you boys can find your way out, right? And we're like, yeah, we could find our way out. We
3 days later.
But the thing is that we also ran into a guy named Mike Miner, who was a conceptual illustrator on the show and a geek. And we stopped and talked to him, and he recognized us as kindred spirits. And he says, come on, I'll show you the ship. And took us and showed us sets and things like that. Of course, years later, when I got interested in makeup and got to know Dick Smith, and
So
he
you
started.
go home. I mean, how you go home? You've had this wonderful experience. What's the next step to go? I want to be in the biz, and it ends up being makeup. Where does that sort of hatch?
Well,
and then how do you meet Dick Smith? And because this guy is legendary. He's the Godfather
Oh my
of makeup.
gosh.
Did the Godfather? Did F. Murray Abraham?
You shouldn't
on
meet Michael Westmore and his family then.
on Amadeus.
Oh, yeah. Well-
yeah, this is sort of.
well, the whole Westmore family. I mean, you could say they helped invent Hollywood makeup.
They sure did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Dick he did, I mean, I like monsters and stuff like that too, but I was blown away, and it was The Exorcist that was like an epiphany
Yeah.
for me. when I went to see The Exorcist, of course, there's a Linda Blair makeup, which they still are using that look in the movies.
yeah.
The new one. That's
The new
out,
one looks
you know,
pretty
And
scary.
it's on every poster practically. I saw The Exorcist. It scared the hell out of me. And the makeup was scary as hell. And it was a couple of years later, I guess, you know, Max von Sydow plays an 86-year-old priest, Father Marin, in The Exorcist. And a couple of years later, I see Max von Sydow in a new movie, and he's in his 40s.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
How?
what's going on
Who
here?
done that?
Which is insane because, look, nobody knows what a monster looks like. No one knows what a possessed child looks like, but everyone knows what old people look like. And the idea that had
Not here in
just-
California.
that-
We're doing our best anyway.
the idea.
We keep them out of you.
I'm 86. No, I'm,
We keep them out of view.
but the idea that makeup had just like gone right by me, you know, and I had no idea.
Right.
And it was a few years after the Federation Trading Post. I was working in an architectural supply in Manhattan called Charette. And one of the managers decided he was going to have a Halloween party. And I had been, of course, back then, you know, now you could go on the internet and type in, how do you do a live cast? And get 10,000 things, including step-by-step videos and stuff. But, you know, then, which I guess it was 77 or 78 or somewhere around there, you couldn't know anything about how that
find this
stuff was
out.
done. You would have to hunt for information in there were fanzines for visual effects. There was one called Cinemagic, which eventually became an actual, you know, mass media magazine. But I had been collecting these things and putting them away for another day. And once he decided he was going to do a Halloween party, they knew I was a geek, so I knew I had to do something unusual. And I knew I had this article. It was step-by-step on how to do a Planet of the Apes makeup. Wow. And I got that article out, and I did my first live cast. I made my first molds. I ran my first foam latex. I applied my first appliance, and I found out I could sculpt. Didn't know I could sculpt.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I drew, but I didn't know I could sculpt. It was just like, holy cow.
This was a block of clay.
Yeah,
And
it was so intoxicating that I became completely obsessed with. The first time I put that makeup on, and Dick describes it in some of the documentaries where it's that Dr. Frankenstein thing where you go, it's alive, it's alive, it's alive.
I did it.
Yeah. And I was totally obsessed. And a great book is still a great book is Richard Corson's classic Stage Makeup, which I got a copy of that. And there were two sections in there on Dick Smith. One was doing Dustin Hoffman as Jack Crabbe in Little Big Man. Where he plays a 110-year-old Jack Crabbe. Yeah. And then there's Hal Holbrook as Mark Twain.
Right.
Which is one of my all-time favorite
You then
makeups.
homaged in...
Well, I got to do Mark
Times
Twain
Arrow.
for Mike Westmore, and I was it was
Jerry
actually,
Harden. Lovely performance.
Well, you know, I said to him, I go, you should take this on the road because he was so good.
He does.
And he did.
He's done. I've done a couple of cruises with Jerry, and he's done that.
He's
act for us
amazing,
on
and
the
we had
cruise.
so much
he's
fun.
fantastic.
Hal did the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Holbrook.
Well, it was a stage thing before they did it on NBC. Did a special for him, and I actually went and saw him do it on stage twice. And the great thing is that because you know I'm friends with Dick Smith, I would go backstage afterwards and have conversations with him still as Mark Twain. You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did you work with Dick Smith then? And that's your sort of proving ground. And
Well, the thing was that once I got this book and I knew about Dick Smith, and then I saw these pictures in his lab, and I found out he lived in Larchmont. He didn't live in Hollywood, which is only like 18 miles north of Manhattan. Right. You know, and I had done some makeups, and a friend of mine, a guy named Doug Murray, who wrote for film magazines and had an amazing collection of stuff from Planet of the Apes. He had original appliances, and he invited me out to come see this stuff, and I brought pictures of my work with me, and he goes, you know what? I just did an interview with Dick Smith. I'm going to give you his telephone number.
fantastic.
Yeah, and I almost like passed out. And it actually literally took me almost 2 weeks to build up the courage to call him And when I did, he kept me on the phone, giving me information and telling me where to get stuff. One day I was in my apartment and I was just happened to be mixing a bucket of plaster, making a mold.
Because that's what you do.
That is what all I did at that point. And the phone rang and it was Dick. And he says, I'm doing a picture with David Bowie and Susan Sarandon and Karen.
Right.
Catherine Deneuve, The Hunger. It's like a vampire flick.
That was Tony Scott's first film.
And it was written by Whitley Strieber.
Yeah.
And he says, are you available to come to work as an assistant?
Fantastic.
And I'm like...
Did you almost
David
pass
Bowie.
out?
I mean, I like dropped the phone practically. He says, I can't pay you much. He says, $60 a day, which I think I was at Charette getting like $150 a week at the time. So I was like, oh my God, I'm rich. But I was so excited. I didn't know whether to stand up, sit down, do a dance. And meanwhile, the bucket of plaster I was mixing had set and solidified.
With your foot in it.
And I was like, that would have been awesome.
That's a day I'll never forget.
But the thing was that I popped that plaster out. It was a disc. I kept it and wrote every makeup job on it as I got them.
brilliant.
Still
What
in my
an amazing
office.
story.
I still have it.
That's great.
Yeah.
What were you drawing mostly before that? People or?
Great question.
Well, I started with machines and stuff, spaceships and things, because they seemed less intimidating than people. People seemed like, that's the top of the top to be able to do human beings.
It's hard.
I eventually got good at that too, but it was mostly spaceships and things. At the time I went to the art department on Deep Space Nine, computers hadn't completely come in yet. I think Mike had the only computer in the art department, and we would share it, and had a screen like this big. But
Mike says,
pre-Apple.
I think it was an Apple. I think it was
There's
a
a
Mac.
story
that
that
he had.
I read. Mike Okuda said you didn't even tell him, but you went away and bought a Macintosh and the Adobe.
I thought I told him. I didn't.
He'd never worked a computer in his life.
I'd never touched a computer
Because you'd asked Mike for a job. I mean, by now you're an Oscar-winning makeup artist.
Well, I had
You've
street
worked on
cred,
Next Gen. You've done some amazing. You did Sir Patrick's aging makeup on Inner Light.
Yeah,
you've won an Emmy.
Yeah,
You know.
so it wasn't.
And now you want
it
to
wasn't
swap.
like
You want to swap. You want to jump horse again.
But
And Mike says, "Well, I can
had-
only bring you on as a PA at best."
I said I'd take it.
Yeah.
I said, and he couldn't believe that I'd be willing to take PA wages,
Yeah.
but I would, because I needed to be on this show. This
Yeah.
is where I was supposed to be.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you gotta
First Mike had to convince Herman Zimmerman that the makeup artist could be a graphic designer, and he was like, a makeup artist? But that's Herman, and he told Mike, if you believe in him, then I believe in him too. And once I got the job, I was going to start in 2 weeks. I went out and bought my first computer, and I spent 2 weeks jamming on that thing, on the programs I knew he used, like Illustrator and Photoshop. And by the time I got there, I could do it, and then I would be learning more and more as I went along. Of course, that led to visual effects too.
Were you already here?
Well, when my partner and I, John Caglione, who's one of the greatest guys I've ever known, we worked together, and we had a lab in Brooklyn. It was a really terrific lab too. I remember sitting there reading Variety, and it said Warren Beatty was going to do Dick Tracy. And I had watched Dick Tracy, I had read Dick Tracy as a kid, the comics, the Sunday Funnies, and it was all about strange, unusual, crazy faces and stuff. And I just remember John and I looking at each other and says, whoever gets that job is going to win an Academy Award. I mean, we knew, because the potential was so amazing.
There it is.
And there it is. We always knew we wanted to come out here, but we didn't want to come out here looking for a job. We decided that a job would find us that would bring us out. And that's what happened with Dick Tracy. First of all, we never should have gotten that job.
How'd you meet Warren? How did you get called in for it?
We had worked with numerous people who were on Dick Tracy. Dick Silbert, who was a production designer, who's Chinatown, and amazing. John knew him from The Godfather, and we knew Milena Canonero, the costume designer from The Godfather. And then there was a guy who was our guardian angel named John Landau. Not John Landis, John Landau, who is James Cameron's guy now and did The Abyss and Titanic and stuff. And we had worked with him on like making Mr. Right and FX and a few other things. And
What did he do for it? Was he his production? Was he his DP? or
when we first met him, I think he was a unit production manager.
unit production,
But then it grew from there. And he's talented and very funny guy. And we just like laughed all the time when we were with him. And so they were all on Dick Tracy. And I'm almost certain that Warren probably talked to all the big shots, the Rick Bakers, the Rob Bottin's, the Greg Canhams and stuff. Greg is a terrific guy, but a guy like Rick Baker, Rick, if you're watching, I'm sorry, but he's the kind of guy who says, well, I get $1 million off the top for myself first, and I'm sure that type of, I'm not saying they're divas, but I just know that they probably, were strutting around.
talked themselves out of a
bit.
job before.
I think that's John and Dick Silbert and Milena Canonero and those people said, why don't you talk to these guys? They're
hot and hungry.
exactly.
Yeah.
And we were out here on something else. Oh, it was with Victor Garber. He was playing Liberace, and we were on that.
Yeah, you worked on that, didn't you?
And John calls us and says, Landau calls and says, can you come up and talk to Warren about Dick Tracy? And we're like, oh my God. And it was, I swear, it was just like, The Incredibles. Remember the movie The Incredibles, where Mr. Incredible goes to get his super suit worked on by E?
Yeah.
And there's oh my God, you've gotten fat. It was just like
No
that,
cape,
going through the
darling.
gate and the dog comes and takes you by the arm.
Was it up at Warren's house? Where'd you meet him?
Yeah, up on Mulholland Drive at Warren's house.
Amazing.
And
That's
his
obviously Jack
assistant-
Nicholson's house, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's reputedly a tunnel. Look.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
Also the Marlon Brando place too.
Oh, well, once we were on the job, Warren Beatty would call us at 2 a.m. and say, what are you doing? And we're like, you don't say, well, I'm sleeping. Why? What's up, Warren? Can you come over? So we went to...
Just to talk.
well, he would do things, and this is to try to shake you up and see how you would react. Like when we went to his house, his assistant says, go down in the screening room, and Warren will be down in a couple of minutes. We waited about 40 minutes for him, and then boom, 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 comes down the stairs in nothing but a towel, soaking wet, like he just came out of the shower, and just sits down and goes, okay, so what can we do? And I'm like,
Shots.
do you mean the makeup or just the movie in general? He goes, the movie in general. What can we? And like, I'd never really actually had anyone ask me that before. Usually they don't want to know what you think.
You got to work with Pacino and Hoffman
yeah.
particularly, didn't you?
And who?
Hoffman, Dustin. So you
Hoffman
did Big Boy Caprice and Mumbles.
I tell you, Al was, believe it or not, he's kind of shy.
Oh,
kind
yes,
of
I know
quiet,
that. Yeah.
And when they brought him in, we were big Godfather geeks.
Right.
While we were making Monsters, we were running The Godfather, such a masterpiece. And Dick's makeups, he aged Marlon Brando in there and incredible. And so John, my partner in particular, I've never seen John starstruck before until we had to do a life cast of Al Pacino. And it's one of the few life casts we screwed up. We had to do it again.
Do it again?
Had to do it again.
I've had to do one of those and they're miserable.
Oh,
Have you ever
they're
done
tough.
one? Oh, miserable.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's like sensory deprivation.
Yeah.
Straws
you
in
get a
your
straw
nose.
in there.
Well, we never used straws. We would just work around the nostrils. But I'll tell you, the worst people of all, the people who cannot take it, are the ones you would think would be the best at it. But I think they kind of do what they do because they need to feel in control. And those are stunt guys.
Right.
And the only time we've ever had people freak out, we had one stunt guy, I saw his knuckles starting to turn white. And he got up with the whole thing on his head and tried to get out.
I can't do this.
Oh, and as a matter of fact, there was one time I had to do a life
This
cast.
thing's banging into the walls.
That I swear. And what's his name?
It's like that scene in
French karate
Fargo.
guy, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, yeah?
I had to do
The
a life
muscles from
cast of
Brussels?
him. Yeah, he came in. He was a really nice guy. And I was standing out back. He comes out, and we're chatting. And I thought he's a cool guy, but I know he can't do it. I know it. I know he can't do it.
I just know it in my soul.
And sure as shit.
Well, I just remember we were chatting, and he.
What's that straw for?
Yeah.
Oh, the 80s.
we have a little conversation. Then he finally says to me, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yeah." And he pats me on the shoulder like that with his foot.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, and as lightly as could be.
He was limber.
And we went in, and I have all the stuff. I put a ball cap on him, explain how I'm going to do it. I've done hundreds of these things, and you've got the alginate powder, and once I start, there's only so much time. The material's going to set. And then I put plaster bandages on there, and I said, "Now, are you claustrophobic?" "No, I'm not claustrophobic." I go, "Are you sure?" He goes, "I'm absolutely sure. I'm not claustrophobic." And so I get the stuff. I'm about to put the water in. I go, "You're not claustrophobic, right?" And he goes, "I'm not claustrophobic." And I pour the stuff in. I start mixing it, and I'm like this far from his face. I'm like, "You're not claustrophobic." "I'm claustrophobic."
You knew it.
And he was. And
you could smell it.
I swear, I knew that was going to happen. And I worked it out. I said, "Look, I'll do your whole face, but I'll leave one eye open where you can see everything that's going on. And then I'll do that eye later, and I'll put them together."
How'd you figure that kind of technique out, like, to not freak people out?
Well, I mean, the main thing is to always, it's important to be friendly.
I got you. You're safe.
Yeah, to
Bedside manner.
pat them on the back and shoulder, rub their shoulder a little bit and say, "How you doing?" If it needs to come off at any time. Actually, I did one life cast on a gal who was in tears afterwards. She said,
It's an emotional. By the way, you've done this, right?
Yeah, I did it for Beowulf.
Yeah, I've done a few of them, and there's something that happens when you have, what is that? The chamber where you have
Sensory
like
deprivation.
altered states?
Yeah, like sensory deprivation, where something happens where when everything's closed off, and it's your head, it's your eyes, it's your mouth, it's your nose.
just gotta breathe, man.
And there's a weight to it.
Yeah.
That is significant.
And these people you've never met before.
Yes.
It's like Al Pacino comes in. He's never seen us before. We've never been in his presence before. And now we're going to dunk his head under.
We're going to
us.
suffocate you, just so you know.
Yeah. Waterboard.
Yeah, right. Did they have a role to play in the design, specifically Pacino?
Pacino
and,
was the only one who
Hoffman?
had a role.
Yeah.
In designing it. He wanted to be involved with it. And I just remember we had V. Neal on the show, who's an amazing makeup artist. And we had a trailer on the back lot that had mix and match pieces. Remember those things as a kid, you turn the knob and it would change the nose, change the eyes, change the hair? Or Mr. Potato Head.
Right, any of those.
We said to V, take Al out to the spare parts trailer and just burn him down. Make him hate makeup. But he just...
What do you mean?
We didn't have a lot of time. He was one of the last people cast, and we were hoping that he wouldn't want to do makeup at all. I mean, he had to. But,
Sure.
But we said basically just put as many pieces on him as you can. Just make him hate it. Burn him to the ground. But he loved it. He loved it.
He loved it.
Oh, he did.
He loved it. And he found a nose and a chin that he liked. And
It's an elaborate.
He's a theater guy.
piece. It is.
I mean,
Oh, he was like I said, he's kind of quiet guy, and he would come in and as the makeup would go on, he would become more and more that guy.
Yeah.
And like he'd fall asleep and then wake up and look at him. And when the makeup was finally on, and John will tell you, he would look up at us like he never saw us before and go, "Who are you guys? I got to get out of here." And he would run out of the trailer, and he was somebody else. He'd be smacking people on the butt. And I mean, stuff Al Pacino would never do.
An empty vessel that got filled
He
up.
was a wild man. But if you look at makeup through the ages, that priests use masks to channel gods, and I know almost everyone who's ever had makeup put on, they feel a psychological change happen.
Yeah, sure.
Well, the plague masks, the comedian masks.
Alone.
Now,
It's a huge part of any actor's performance is the makeup and the costume.
Yeah, I remember doing Stargate Atlantis, playing the character Michael, where I've had tons of makeup on, and you get there at 4:30 in the morning, and you don't feel that character at all. And as it's applied over the 3 or 4 hours, you get there. Here it comes, starts to show up, and then you do the layer, other layer, you do some specific coloring, and then by the time you're done, you've had this kind of.
You believe you're that
It's
person.
it's almost method acting being applied to you.
Yeah.
I mean, with only luck,
really
he's learned
is.
his lines in the chair, and we actually have a performance.
Yeah, that happened.
I mean, I read Sir Patrick Stewart's
I mean, lines, whatever.
lines.
Connor, you were so handsome.
Pacino was good with his lines.
I doubt it.
I loved what he did with Dustin Hoffman's lips, man, putting them on the other side of his face.
Yeah, they
I
were.
mean,
Well,
they
his
were
lips
brilliant.
look confused.
His character
They
was
were over
mumbles.
here. Yeah, that was such an amazing experience because Dustin is the funniest guy going. He is so funny, and he loves to tell dirty jokes. You can't really do that anymore, which is kind of a shame.
I can't relate.
People who get there are people who get really offended by a dirty joke, But I mean, Dustin told a joke. He's a master, and he'd have us laughing all the time. And actually, there was stuff that was shot for Dick Tracy with Al as Big Boy and Dustin as Mumbles in the boardroom, swimming across throwing money across the, cash across the table and swimming in it. And it was, everyone was hysterical laughing watching those two.
Did you know you were onto something with this movie in particular, with the design?
Well, I mean, look, I'm not saying that Rick Baker wouldn't have done a better job than us. He might have, but
He wasn't hired.
He wasn't hired, Well, the funny thing was that when they were considering us, Dick Smith said, well, you guys aren't going to get the job. He says,
Really?
they're going to give it to Rick Baker, or, And then when we got the job, and he was stunned. And he said, well, maybe you got the job. And he says, and maybe you'll do the lab work, but they'll never let you put
Do the
makeup on the set because you're an East Coast person. It's a totally different union out here.
Oh, gotcha.
And Dick hadn't counted on Warren Beatty, the power of Warren Beatty. He hadn't said whether it was going to be a union show or not yet. And of course, the union really wanted Dick Tracy. And Warren said, I think we're going to it's going to be a union show, but there's these two guys.
He really stuck his neck out for you.
Yeah. And Howard Smith, who was the head of the makeup union,
That's huge.
was known for being a tough guy. And he didn't want East Coast people out here and stuff. Howard Smith himself drove our applications out to our lab and handed them to us like this.
Oh my gosh.
That's what a story, man.
We rented a house in Laurel Canyon. Of course, now you could see Laurel Canyon was rock and roll heaven in the 60s and 70s and stuff like that, and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Joni Mitchell and stuff like that. I mean, I couldn't go on the internet and do that kind of research, Now I realize, but we had this amazing house. See, I'm spinning off into different directions here. The company was looking for houses for us, and they had these like ranch houses in Van Nuys, and I hear this voice come from behind, oh no, you're not staying there. And I turn around and it's Dick Silbert's wife, Charmaine, and she does real estate in the Hollywood Hills. And she drove a Rolls Royce, and probably had been driving a Rolls Royce in a Hollywood Hills since she was 10.
Right.
And she was driving.
mean feat.
Holy cow, she was driving those. John and I were like hanging on for dear life. But
Right.
she took us to this one place. You wouldn't even believe you were in Los Angeles. It was so beautiful. You couldn't,
right.
And
Dingley Dale.
Do you
up
remember
in
where
there.
it was?
Yeah.
it was on
Like Lookout?
Willow Glen.
Willow Glen, yeah.
Up on the top of Willow
Yeah.
Glen. And I'm like, Charmaine, we can't afford this. And she says, trust me. She goes, if you and John and Anthony, who ended up on Star Trek, and Kevin Haney, who was a makeup artist on Star Trek, if you all get together and the company will put in some money, you'll afford this. And we did. Wow. And we lived, and and the beauty of it is you go down one side and you've got the rock and roll clubs on Sunset Boulevard and the comedy clubs, and you go down the other side and you've got Ventura Boulevard with,
Oh, right there.
And all the
Yeah.
studios. Where was Dick Tracy shot? Where was that shot?
Oh, it was all shot here in Los Angeles.
It was
and
not.
Universal.
They had sets on. What studio made it?
Most of it was shot at Universal.
At Universal.
We
right,
did
right.
go to Warner Brothers for like a day or two,
Right.
but it was almost all Universal.
Amazing.
But so Warren doing things too. So 2 a.m, Warren Beatty, the phone rings. We're asleep. He's like, what are you doing? What do you want us to do?
Yeah.
He says, can you come over? We're like, sure. We get in the car, we go over, and he meets us at the door and leaves us. And he goes, go in the kitchen. I have something I want to talk to you about. We go in the kitchen, and Madonna is sitting at the kitchen table.
Right.
We didn't know she was going to be there. That's the only reason he had us come over. He had nothing to nothing to talk to us about.
Holiday.
Hey, I got a story. When I think of Warren's Kitchen, we had to go up there to talk to Warren one day, and they had a kid who was trying out for the part of the kid. And Warren's there, the kid's there, me and John are there, and I could tell the kid is like a troublemaker, smart mouth kid.
Claustrophobic, huh?
He would light you on fire, if he thought it would get a laugh, you know. And Warren had to go take a telephone call. I'm sitting there with this kid and John, and the kid is, he says, I can throw up on command. And I'm like, really?
Never heard that.
I said, I'll pay you $50 if you throw up on Warren Beatty.
No way.
I did.
Flashing the money out.
I said, $50 if you'll throw up on Warren Beatty. And then Warren comes back, and we're talking, and I look over at the kid, and he's trying to catch my eye, and he's going, and I'm going, oh my God. He's gonna do it.
I don't have $50 on me.
And it's like, well, when you get to that point, you're like, it can't get worse, and I just burst out laughing. I couldn't help it. I was laughing, and Warren's like, what's going on? And the kid goes, he offered me $50 to throw up on you.
Oh my God.
In a way, the tables were turned there. I did something that surprised him, and we got to see how he would react.
So you had this fantastic experience, get you one of these. And then what?
Well, the thing was that they were in the middle of shooting season 2 of TNG across the lot. Now, before we got out here, and I knew they were going to do Next Generation, they hadn't started shooting yet, I was freaking out because they're doing Star Trek again with Gene Roddenberry and Robert Justman there, two of my heroes from the original series. And I just remember Caglione. He knew how to get me to, think and do stuff. He said, well, Doug, why don't you just call Bob? And I'm like, I can't call. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Why can't I? I'm in the business, and I'm, And I got on the phone, and I called the Paramount switchboard and asked for Robert H. Justman. And they put me right through.
Hang on a second. Well, I'm going to go to H5 to H4. You've got Robert.
Yeah. And I
Hold, please.
Had him on the phone, and we became great friends. And
had you got the Oscar in your hands by then?
No. We were still in Brooklyn.
Right.
Yeah. And
but it's known that you've just done this huge movie.
No, we hadn't done Dick Tracy yet. This is before Dick Tracy. It was like a year or so before Dick Tracy.
So you made contact.
Made contact. Yeah, it was first contact for sure. Right. And he was my hero. And I think we were mostly communicating through letters and stuff. He always wrote me a letter back. And I remember saying, I wrote in the letter, I said, you would make this kid's dream come true if I could come out and visit the sets. They were still being built at the time. And he wrote back, he says,
this is letters?
Letters.
Yeah.
We spoke a couple of times on the phone, but it was letters. And I said, you'd make this kid's dream come true. And he wrote back and he said, we'd like to make this kid's dream come true. However, it's not up to me. He says, it's up to you. You say when, and we'll be waiting for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I went out, and Bob kept me with him all day long. I went to meetings with ILM. I remember I saw a shot of the Enterprise D passing under the camera for the title sequence.
Oh, my
and
God.
I could see looked like a little guy walking across the observation lounge. And I was like, Bob, was I imagining things? And he was so excited about that because it was his idea. It sold the idea that there were people in there, I think I actually had met Charlie Washburn. He was like the first AD, and he worked on the original Star Trek. And when I was introduced to him, I said, Star Trek Charlie, which is what they used to call him. And he was so delighted that I knew who he was, because usually those people don't know.
Right.
And that's where I really got to meet Mike Westmore. And, he was sculpting. And they had had a little shack on a stage behind stage 9 and 10. It wasn't even Star Trek stage. And he always has this little smile when he's working. I'm sure you've probably seen it, And we hit it off right away. And when Dick Tracy was over, I literally went and begged Mike Westmore to let me come work on Star Trek. And I think I told you that. He was like, but you are doing, why? And I'm like, Mike, Star Trek is the whole reason I'm even in the business. This is where I'm supposed to
Holy
be.
Grail.
And he was like, okay. And I started working on the show in the 3rd season.
In the department.
On Next Generation, yeah.
In the art department.
No, makeup.
Makeup. Yeah.
And we're still dear friends. I see Mike Westmore regularly, and
He's a lovely man, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's so fun.
He's going to come back. He was on
He's
our
going to
show.
come back. He's done the show. Yeah, he's coming back. We're going to do just an Enterprise episode.
Yeah.
They're doing a documentary about him.
They are
right
yeah.
now.
Are they really? I
Yeah,
hadn't
Mike,
heard about that.
Dave Sapone with 455 Films. They're currently shooting him right now.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I mean, the whole Westmore story is so amazing. I mean,
It is, isn't it?
Mike did his own book called Makeup Man.
Yes, we have.
Which, that story of me, the story of Lal, Leonard Crowfoot, Data makes his offspring. I think the episode was called The Offspring.
All right.
And they wanted, before he made an android that looked a lot like this. They wanted him to look kind of like an Oscar. And that meant no facial features, no naughty bits, no nothing. And
What a great ass.
well, he actually did have quite a nice ass.
Tight buns.
And I've seen him
You have to
close
put the
up.
gloves on to handle it.
I've had my nose right there. But I remember talking to Mike Westmore and Jerry Quist, because we were going to do it, and they were talking about making a pair of foam latex shorts for him to put on, and I was saying, no, I think that those are going to show up. You'll see the anatomy stop here. And I think we should make like a G-string, a foam latex G-string that his waterworks would fit into, and it would blend in around here, and then would just fill the crack of his ass.
I'm sorry, I want to pause for a second. You just said his waterworks?
Yeah. His facilities.
His gear.
Yeah. His junk.
It's basically a Mykonos outfit.
So Mike says, well, if you really feel strongly about making this part of it, that's your job. So I sculpted that part. Mike sculpted, he made a chest piece and a face that went on him. And then we would, and when I met Leonard, I said, the thing is that once you are sealed into this, there's no going to the bathroom. There's no taking a pee.
Yeah.
It's all, that is like, are you willing to do that? And Leonard Crowfoot is like so zen. He like stopped eating like,
Bless
the
him. I remember
day
Mike told
before.
us this story about this.
That's right.
Yeah, he did.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, it's in his book.
Yeah.
And so,
True pro though. That's pro stuff. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
René Auger-Bernard did the
Well-
same thing when he was as Odo in Deep Space Nine.
I put that makeup on Leonard by myself, and it took like 4.5 hours or something like that. Leonard was amazing, and it looked really great. But the thing was that Mike Westmore gave me this paint that had been made that is metallic and looks gold, like Goldfinger. He says, at the end of the day, this is designed it'll come right off. Just use some.
Famous
did not.
last words.
Yeah. Oh my God! And I'm like,
They wire brushed it
you're
off, didn't
there
they?
from 2 a.m, and now you're taking the makeup off at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
2 a.m. the next day.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it was just me, and I'm thinking I put on a lot of makeups, and I've never seen a makeup that could stay on all day that will just come off at the end of the day. You need to. And man, let me tell you, when I started to, and I brought my own, isopropyl myrostate as a remover, which was like nice oily.
Right.
It was like not.
It makes my
not
skin crawl.
it
I know, I was
was
just thinking about
It
it.
really does.
Yeah.
Your
Skin's pulling.
Yeah.
It's hateful.
And it was like almost like an hour and a half later, I was hardly making any progress. And I called Mike at home. And I said, Mike, can you get them to open the studio gym so I could take him and put him in a steamy hot shower with a scrub brush? And Mike got him to do that. They opened up the gym, and I took him over, and it's the first time I've ever taken a shower with a man. And the last time. But literally, it was like,
Were you wearing the waterwork thingy?
I'll do it too.
yeah, if it makes you more comfortable.
Yeah.
But it was
You're not claustrophobic,
it
are
was
you?
kind of like being in the circus, scrubbing an elephant. I was like, I had to scrub, I was scrubbing. And
Scrubbing
finally
an
got him,
elephant.
but we had to do it one more time. And this time Mike Westmore stayed to help me take it off.
Mm-hmm.
And
3 men in a shower and no
well,
baby.
but the thing was that we started at the top. We started at the top and worked down. Mike was on one side, I was on the other. Now, Mike thinks he was the guy in the front. And he signed he signed the book to me, to Doug, from the guy in the front.
Ah, that's amazing.
And I'm like, I was the guy in the front. And
doing the heavy lifting.
working my way down, and I'm on my knees right in front of it where his waterworks are. And I pull the thing off, and it just flops down in front of me like this. I'm like, and but the funny thing was that I'm looking, it's hanging in front of me. I'm looking past it through his legs, and like a fleshy cameo from hell.
Oh my God.
I see Mike Westmore on the other side.
Inching his way around the buttocks.
And I say, hey, Mike, never thought I'd have a view of you like this. And we just totally, utterly lost it.
Oh, my God.
Totally, utterly lost it. It was so damn funny.
The dignity.
I have a question about your sculpting. I mean, like, you didn't have any training, right, at all.
No.
And were you immediately comfortable with your ability to?
In front of the humanity.
You are dirty birds. With the sculpting, as it were. You know, was that a thing you just naturally came to?
Well, you know, I had done a lot of...
It's a big part of design.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know whether I was going to be able to sculpt or not when I first tried it. But I had done a lot of drawing. That was my direction, you know. I went to the arts...
You went to the visual art school, didn't you, in New York?
Yeah, I went to first I went to the School of Visual Arts and Film School, and I don't know about now, but then it was a train wreck. I had a teacher who had a directing actors class in his loft on 14th Street, and you'd go up there and he'd still be in his bed and come out yawning, scratching his ass.
What are you doing here?
And he, I never directed an actor in that class. He was just, my parents thought I was lying, you know.
Did they?
Oh, yeah. And so one day he was giving us, we come in and he says, I'm giving you your midterm review. And we would go back in his office. It was like a rat's nest. And he had to take a phone call. And he went out in the studio. And I'm looking around. And I see a big stack of papers. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what's that? And I start leafing through it. And well, what do you know? He's writing his memoir. And I find a page. And it says, when I went to school, the teachers weren't teaching me everything I needed to know. And I always swore that if I was in a position where I was teaching, I would teach everything I knew and I would never hold back. And then I came to teach at the School of Visual Arts and I was teaching everything I knew. And then I realized my students were going out and getting jobs using my ideas and my techniques. And it said, boom, went my head. That's when I came up with my fake method of teaching that would look like it would work, but never would. Because first of all, it never looked like it would work. And I took that page, I folded it up, and I put it in my back pocket.
Yes, you did.
And I showed that to my parents. And so I left that school.
So you really are a high school kid, mate. Real good. Yeah. God bless you, mate.
Well, you know, the thing was that from there, I went for like a year at the Art Students League, which is on 57th Street, and has been there. Norman Rockwell went to that school.
Did you take the paper out and put it in? Could you do better than that?
Yeah. You know, I still have that somewhere in a box.
Brilliant.
That's amazing.
But I went to the Art Students League, and that is a wonderful school. There's no diploma. There are no grades. Whatever you take from it is what you put into it.
It's training.
It's training. And I have to say that when I was a makeup artist and, you know, with John and we were, you know, hiring people, or when I was doing visual effects with Gary Hutzel, you know, on Galactica and stuff like that, I've never, ever asked anyone what school they went to or let me see your diploma.
Oh, really? No,
I just want to see your work. Just show me your work.
Show me your work.
You know, the school, it doesn't mean anything in that regard.
So by the time you get to our show, you've now taught yourself how to do CGI. I mean, you're an amazing fella.
You know, I've told other people that, and they said, oh, you can't hold a job, huh?
Yeah, you're right.
You know, but, you know, I mean, I had the best time, you know, working with Mike and Herman and Denise, and then John Eves came in later, and we just had so much fun. We were all on the same wavelength, and
At
we had
what
a
point in
raucous-
Next Gen do you swap from makeup to production design?
Oh well,
then?
that's actually there's a story. I was finally on the set. I spent a lot of time on the Enterprise D because you know what the hours are like.
Yeah.
And now I could put my nose right up against those graphics and really look at them. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this guy is not kidding.
This
He
Mike
has
Akuda's
worked it
work.
out.
Right.
He's worked it out, and he's got a scientific turn of mind. And so he was like my hero. And I ran into him on stage one day, and I gushed like crazy. And I think I kind of embarrassed him a little bit, And
He tells a story about taking you out for the shuttle pod
that's
day.
it. Yeah,
Tell that story.
That was I'm coming down to Carter, the D. There's nobody else there. I see Mike. He's coming the other way, and we run into each other and we greet each other. And I said, "See, Mike, what is the possibility of me getting into the art department?" And you don't want to be a geek on stage because they've had geeks break into the stage and take stuff,
right.
And so they always were a little suspicious of anyone who was too big a geek. However, I never felt constrained because I just came from Warren Beatty's movie doing Dick Tracy,
You had
so
one of
I'm
these.
going to be a geek if I want to,
Yeah.
And Mike was afraid of that, I guess. And he grabbed me by the arm and dragged me down the hall, and there's that big holodeck door, pulls it open, and inside there is Shuttle Bay 3, which is almost complete. And in it is that shuttle that they gave Scotty. It's like one of the most beautiful shuttles they
Yeah.
ever did. It's
Yeah.
complete inside and out, and it's all lit.
Yeah.
And so we go in the shuttle, and Mike sits in the pilot seat, and I sit in the co-pilot seat, and you look outside, and you see ship. You see the Enterprise D hangar deck, and it's like worlds within worlds within worlds, and it's like mind-altering. And we start talking. He goes, well, the art department isn't that big, and you just there's the odds of somebody leaving. There's really not much chance of that. And I say, hey, Mike, do you realize that we're actually recreating a scene from 2001?
2001 Space
where they're
Odyssey.
hiding from Hal.
Yeah.
And he looks at me, and we both burst out laughing. And I think that was the moment where we both bonded there. We both knew that we had so much in common, and and I made him laugh, and it looked like I was going to get into the TNG art department, but then the person who was going to leave got cold feet at the last minute, didn't leave. So that was a disappointment, but it wasn't that long later where they were going to do
DS9 came along, right?
Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And Mike talked Herman into hiring the makeup artist. And
Was Mike Westmore sad to see? He didn't-
Mike wanted me to be one of his lead guys
right.
in the makeup department for Deep Space Nine because now they were going to be doing several shows. He needed, and I love Mike, and I didn't want to let him down, but I needed to do this.
Did you take him into the shuttle pod? Sat him down.
I want to chat for a second.
So, the great thing is that, like, if you're in the art department and you're a graphic designer, if Herman sees you could do other things, pretty soon you're sketching props too, So that was wonderful. I was so excited to do that.
And your attention to detail is just second to none.
And Herman said something
When it comes to
yesterday
Star Trek especially.
that there were no cubicles. It was just an open room where you were all creating with each other.
Yeah.
And what an extraordinary
Yeah.
thing that is, that you're looking at something, you're doing something, looking at somebody else doing also that, and you just continue to build your way up the mountain.
Yeah, not Andy Probert.
Oh, I feel bad for Andy because he
I
could
don't
have had.
even know who he is. God bless.
He could have had. He could have had one amazing career, as a designer, but he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and and with Star Trek, it had to do with the Romulan ship.
Like John Billingsley.
Yeah.
He had done a design for a Romulan ship, the Warbird, and Rick Berman didn't like it. So what did Andy do? He cornered Gene Roddenberry and said, "Hey, Gene, what do you think of this?" And Gene said, "That's great. Let's do that." And that was the end for Andy.
You don't want to cross.
Well, and I was just talking to someone else about this recently, is that you don't want to do an end run around somebody who's in charge. That's like the kiss of death.
Right.
Don't do that. You're crazy. You got to be crazy to do that. You know, when I'm on a job, I'm here to focus your vision. You know, I have my own ideas and I'll work them in, and I'll, you know, if you have a terrific producers and stuff. I mean, when we went to, you know, Galactica and we had Ron Moore there and David Icke and stuff. I mean, or Terry.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who wants to know what you think.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy with it, he's not happy with it.
You worked
Totally.
on Picard too, yeah? Did you work
Oh,
on
yeah.
Picard? Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Well, the thing was that there was a period there where people like Mike and myself and Denise, we were kind of disenfranchised. They didn't want
Right, that
anyone
legacy.
who knew too much
They
about
were
Star
setting you
Trek.
out to farm in a way.
Yeah, well, they want to do their own thing.
Yeah.
They don't want to be told that the ship, the original series ship, isn't 947 feet. I want it to be 3,000 feet long. You know, fans love the continuity. That's one of the great things about Star Trek.
The deeper we get into this show, the more I understand that that's a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I get it now.
Well, it's just that Star Trek is a period piece.
This
It
is
just
real to
happens
them.
in the future. You know.
Oh, well put. Well put. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, if you're going to do the story of Pearl Harbor, you don't give the Japanese F-15s because they're cooler.
Yeah.
You know, right?
Right. Yeah.
But
Oh my lord.
when you're doing
You're
it,
saying it exactly the right way, the way everyone wants to hear it right now.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We get a lot of this chat in our community about canon and continuity.
yeah, and part of the charm of Star Trek is that it all ties together. All the threads tie together until J.J. Abrams did the first Star Trek movie, and he basically did it. See, he doesn't understand that because he's not a Star Trek geek. He's a Star Wars kid, really. I mean, you could be both, but I saw, and I've talked to J.J. Abrams, and he's a very nice guy, but I saw him on the Jon Stewart Daily Show to talk about his first movie coming out. And Jon Stewart is a big Star Trek fan, and he was really like, listening and paying
Can we
rapt
get him?
attention.
Can we get Jon Stewart?
Yeah, I'll just text him.
He's a big Star Trek fan. So, and this is on YouTube. You can see it. J.J. Abrams explained that he says, I never really liked Star Trek, and I always hated it when they would get philosophical and stuff. And that's like,
my Lord,
that's like
that
a
is
knife
Star
in my
Trek.
heart.
Right.
You know, that's what I love about the show, that it'll take a stand and get philosophical. And I remember Jon Stewart going, I think I stopped hearing you when you said you didn't like Star Trek.
Now we definitely got to get
You're on a commercial.
Yeah, right.
That was one of the great Star Trek moments,
I've not seen that. That's,
Listen, I
very
understand,
telling.
and I've said this before, that when you bring in, for Herman, it was important, and of course you had Gene Roddenberry there, who wanted to connect to the old show, and people were hired who knew the show. Me and Mike and Denise know that show, inside and out. I totally understand that they bring in a production designer who wants to make his own mark on it. And maybe I thought the show was kind of cheap looking. I want to do something completely different. You've got people out there who have been fans of the show for decades. They have bought books.
Part of the fabric of their life.
Yeah. They've bought books. They've memorized it. The encyclopedia. They can tell you when things happen, how it happened. They have blueprints. They know the layout of the ship and the way it works. And now you're telling me that all of that was for nothing?
Yeah.
And they get angry.
Yes.
Now, I understand that, but I also...
They're being dismissed in a way.
Yeah. On the other hand, I understand a production designer who isn't particularly a geek and doesn't... it's if you don't get it, you don't get it, And I understand that they want to put their spin on it or maybe even fix it, But that's like a huge, huge mistake with Star Trek. Now, Star Trek has spun in so many different directions now that really Picard is not, in my opinion, in the same universe with Discovery.
Agreed.
Strange New Worlds is not the same
agreed.
universe.
It's not.
So ultimately what I finally had, there was a long time where it was real.
It has echoes of
I just think it's kind of like what happened with Marvel. Star Trek became a multiverse.
Yeah.
And so Strange New World is another universe.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, what's your take on this idea of there's legacy Trek versus new Trek?
Well, I mean, I love what Terry wants to do with Legacy.
Well,
with Star Trek Legacy.
Terry, he's deep in it.
He's deep in it. He loves it. He knows it. He understands it, and he understands the fans.
It was happenstance that they got that third season the way they got it, though. I mean, it wasn't.
What do you mean?
Wasn't. Well, I don't think it was planned.
Well, I don't think there was ever a plan to do a TNG reunion. I think
No, there wasn't.
I think
mean,
that when they got to the third
My understanding
season,
was that there were people at the top of the chain, the food chain, that didn't want that. You know.
Yeah.
But then they had to sort of acquiesce to, we need eyeballs, and the way we're going to get that is bring the cast back. Yeah.
Right.
well, it really
And
worked.
look how that mapped out under his auspice. You know.
It was a season 3 was full circle.
Yeah.
For that era of Star Trek, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera too, with Mike and Denise and me, and I first met Dave Blass, the production designer, who is nothing but good for Star Trek. He understands. I mean, he was talking to He was talking to me on Facebook Messenger. I thought he was a Star Trek fan. I didn't know.
Right.
And so we were chatting back and forth, and we were hitting it off, and he'd send me pictures of him in like a Starfleet uniform as a kid and stuff like that.
Right.
And then he told me, I'm the production designer for season 2 and 3. I'm like, what? And he wanted to get the band back together.
Yeah.
And Terry did too.
Yeah.
And I think the first time we had I thought he was going to ask me to do graphics, which for me, graphics is kind of like falling off a log compared to doing starships, because when you do a starship, it's one of the stars of the show.
All right.
So everybody is looking at that thing and nitpicking it, and giving you notes and telling you what to do. And although I got to say that when we did the NX, I mean, I had incredible freedom on that show.
That was a blank slate, wasn't it?
What is unique
Really?
to you about Star Trek, having it's been so in you and through you throughout your whole life? What's unique about it? What is unique about the franchise that speaks to you?
Well, I mean, I think almost everyone, says that, well, Star Trek is that one of the few science fiction things about the future that's optimistic. And it says that there is a tomorrow, and there's also a love of diversity, that there's inclusion for everybody. It's not like we're dividing people up, and that's very appealing to people, and especially people who are kind of disenfranchised going to high school and junior high school,
Yes.
like I was when where you can't catch a baseball and stuff like that. So you felt part of this group. You wanted
Community,
to be a part of it.
yeah,
It's a community,
yeah.
and also once you start getting involved, especially now where you have the internet. Where you can meet other people. I mean, one of the most amazing things is, I was at the very first Star Trek convention, in New York City in like 1972 or something like that, or
Who were the
whatever it
main
was.
guests? Were they all there? Or?
No, I mean, Shatner didn't start going for a while.
All right.
But Nimoy showed up out of the blue. They didn't know he was going to be there. They expected a few hundred people. They got several thousand. Yeah,
Pretty amazing.
Roddenberry came.
Did he?
And he came to the Federation Trading Post when we were doing
Did he?
the show.
Did he really?
Yeah. Don't let me
Amazing.
forget that. At the store one night, it's one of those sweltering, rainy summer nights, and I go out to get a coffee. I come back, and my glasses are all fogged. And Mitch, in that picture,
Right.
kid in the picture, he's working there, and he says, "Doug, there's somebody here I think you really should meet." And I'm thinking, someone's going to complain or something. And I walk, and I'm trying to look through my glasses, and I realize I'm looking into this guy's chest. He's
a big
like,
tall guy.
and I go, and it's Gene Roddenberry. And he was a doll. I mean,
Do you want
he
the
was-
F-bomb?
Yeah, he was like, he loved the store. He said, "You've done a great job here, and you treat everyone great, and I think it's really awesome."
How had he gotten wind? I mean, how would he have gotten wind about your store in New York at that time? Was there some sort of, how would you put it?
I'm not
Smoke rings going up.
And especially when there's no internet or anything going on.
I mean, like, it had fallen out of the zeitgeist, or had it? Star Trek itself. Had it fallen out of the zeitgeist by the time it was
Right.
canceled?
Well, it was building the syndication thing.
Yeah,
was
that,
building
and
at the
then
time.
the Trimbles had started the fan
Bijo
writing.
yeah. Well, see, and that Bijo was working for Majel with her husband
Right.
John, right? Where they were working for Lincoln Enterprises, and they had this mailing list with everyone's name on it. And one day I got a thing in the mail saying that, and of course Gene was behind it, but he always denied it at the time, a letter writing campaign, which Bijo really and John Trimble really, got going. And I was like 13 or something, I guess. And I went wild, the whole idea that they were going to cancel this show, I mean, it was obvious that the people who were doing it loved science fiction, Gene Roddenberry, So I started getting kids. I was in junior high school. I started getting kids writing letters.
You were enrolling people to do it?
Wow.
Yeah, and we were writing hundreds of letters. And
I love the fact that you're a letter writer. I just think
I'm
brilliant.
in class.
My mother was a letter writer.
One day I'm in class, and over the intercom it says to the teacher, "Would you send Douglas Drexler to the principal's office?" And of course everyone starts laughing. You're in trouble. Yeah. So I'm like, what did I do? What's going on? And I go down to the principal's office, and all the secretaries, they're all like smiling, and the principal comes out and he's all smiling, and I'm like, what's going on here?
I'm not in so much trouble now.
Oh yeah. And he says, Harvey Aronson from New York Newsday is on the phone. He wants to interview you.
Oh my God.
I had sent Newsday letters too. I sent newspapers letters.
Oh, brilliant.
And he interviewed me. And a couple of days later, there was like a quarter of a page article about this group isn't way out, but its cause is. And it's about me instigating writing letters to save Star Trek.
You're 13 and you're a legend.
Well, I was the geeky kid no one wanted to know. And then I came into school on the day that thing was published.
Brilliant.
And every class I went to, the teacher unfolded the article and read it to the class. And after that, I was like, all of a sudden I was cool.
Would you take to prom?
So, I mean, but that also, that really hit me between the eyes where I'm a 13-year-old kid here. I could actually have an effect.
Right.
That really was an epiphany for me.
Yeah,
and so,
I got pulled out of a tutorial at university by the secretary of the history department. I've got Barclaycard on the telephone, Dominic, and it wasn't for a good reason.
We are about an hour 25 in, and I feel like this is great, Doug. This conversation could go on forever. But we do have a ticking clock. We have a lot of questions to get to, and I'm kind of hoping that anything we may have missed we'll catch in the questions. So let's start with some housekeeping with people who are in our live chat. Captain's Quadrant for $10. So amazing to see Doug, and what a hell of an intro, Dom. Shuttlepod guys always raising the bar. Showed up.
Anyway.
Matt Boardman, $10. Thank you, Matt.
Matt,
Thank you, guys. Matt.
Hopefully we get to hear a little bit about some satisfaction pizza making.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I started making pizza. I hear that Jonathan Frakes and John Delancey have pizza making contests. Maybe they'll invite me sometime. But I don't remember.
That explains.
Oh yeah, I was watching, Masterclass on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking through it, and there was a guy who's like a 6-time pizza champion, and I'm like, oh, this sounds like fun, and I put it on, and I was so impressed by the history. Pizza really goes way back.
Yeah.
And how simplistic it is. Even the dough is so simplistic.
Yeah.
And so I decided to make one.
Yeah.
And Matt's had one.
It's paisan, food for working.
Do you have an oven?
I do not have I have my regular oven at home, which does about 500 degrees, but a pizza oven is more like 900 degrees.
Yeah.
And a pizza is done in like 60 seconds.
Yeah.
I told my girlfriend that I wanted to get a pizza oven. She's like, you have an oven in the house.
It's not the same.
It's not. And she's actually coming around saying, when are you going to get that pizza oven?
While we're mentioning food, we should just briefly mention Dorothy. Dear Dorothy.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I have to cough for a second. Excuse me, everyone.
And what an absolutely lovely lady.
Dorothy, and most of the fans
Dorothy
know
Nuda,
her.
for those that
She
don't
was
know.
the chef.
She made all our set food.
She made all the food. I met Dorothy on Dick Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
Did you really?
Yeah, she came to work for us on Dick Tracy. We were like buds, just friends for 3 years.
Is that right?
Yeah, before I ever even thought about asking her out. Because
how about
she
that?
came to work and I was like, yes, she's very pretty and funny as hell.
Very funny lady.
Sharp, but she's working here and I have to be a boss,
Right.
And I just she was like my sister.
Was she doing food on set for dictation?
No.
What was she doing on dick?
Well, Dorothy, by her trade, really was production accounting, production controlling.
I didn't know
she
that.
did numbers, you know.
Gosh, she was a hell of a cook, man.
Oh my God. I mean, living with her was like living in a 4-star resort.
Yeah.
You know? Now, when John and I first got out here, they had us at the Beverly Garland Hotel. And someone from Rick Baker's shop recommended her to us. And I called her up, and she said, of course, everyone was excited about that show, and she was really excited to come over and talk to us. And I said to John, I go, do you want to meet her in the restaurant? And he says, you know what? We're in Hollywood. Tell her to meet us by the pool.
There you go.
And we both thought that was hysterical, and we were laughing. And actually, the funny thing is that later on I found she had been working on her memoir. And she tells the story of that day. And she says, it's tough enough being cool when you're trying for a job that you really, really, really want. But when they ask you to meet them by the pool under the Southern California
It's 92
sun,
degrees outside.
Yeah.
You're sweating bullets.
So the thing was that John and I are sitting by the pool, and the gate opens, and this gorgeous woman comes in, and I knew it was her instantly. Her posture was perfect. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was perfect. Her outfit was put together. And I said, John, I think that's her. And it was. And she came over, and we hit it off right away. And we were, very impressed with her. And she gave each of us a card. I remember, I think it said something like, no drama, just accounting plus some pretty good baked goods.
That's a great
But I
card.
remember saying to John, I said, oh man, forget it, man. She belongs in a glass tower somewhere. She's so, you can't see her in the lab with, plastered dust and we both knew she was very pretty. And John says, no, let's give her a shot. And I'm like,
Let's just do it.
okay. And she turned out to be, amazing. And after 3 years, we started going out, and it was, the first time we met, it was, got the same jokes, and
She was very fun.
she was wonderful.
God bless her.
And so I think that we dated for like 12 years before we got married.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the house she was staying in, she was renting, the owner wanted to sell it, and she had to find a new place, and rents were ridiculous. And I had this house in North Hollywood. I had a roommate, and he moved out, and I said, Dorth, there's an extra room here, and she's like, no, I need to have my own. She's a very independent person. And I'm like, look, just think of it as a lifeboat. Stay here until you find the place. And there's my phone down there. And you know who that is? That's Mitch.
Is it?
Is it really?
Wait till I tell him I'm talking to you guys.
I only know him as a 14-year-old.
So she moved in
That
and
came out
then
wrong.
found out that it was actually great living in the same house together.
great.
We got along fantastic.
The only time I ever went up on Star Trek was when there would be a plate of her food in front of me on the mess hall or somewhere. I might just forget my lines. I'd be just.
Oh, you know what? Oh my God! Did you ever see that piece of film?
There's a clip. I wonder whether we can get.
I'm the guy who saved that clip.
You did. God bless you, mate. It's
Yeah.
hilarious. Me and Anthony doing a scene.
It's hysterical.
And I just completely go up. And,
It's hysterical.
see, they put the food. Charlie Russo, it was Russo and Johnny Props. Apparently, when they'd see it was a meal day and Dom was in the scene, they're like,
Well, they told Dorth
because I did.
he'd be gobbling.
They'd have to redo the plate every time.
Yeah, and that scene, you could hear the suction of the food as he's eating it.
Yeah.
And
see
he
if we can get it
totally
out.
misses his line. And
They had to take food away from me and put like just a little foam pad because I would eat it all. And during Scott's coverage, I'd be like,
well, I think that Charlie finally said to Dorth, bring him a plate of food to his trailer before we shoot the scene.
Fill him up.
Yeah, get him full.
We'll keep the bucket close by.
Well, the thing is that I remember the new thing was, instead of doing plot exposition in the turbo lift, which they had done for decades, I guess Berman had decided that they were going to kind of do the bonanza
mess
thing,
hall, right.
Where everyone sits around the breakfast table or dinner table and they catch people up on things.
right.
And Craig Bink, the prop master
Oh yes,
that
right.
Charlie worked for,
We never really saw. He didn't come around set much.
He was upstairs most of the
upstairs
time.
most of the
What a
time,
great
yeah.
guy. He's so much fun. I saw the frustration he was going through because they were hiring food stylists who, for some reason, I remember Bing saying, Dougie, I don't know. I could find food stylists, but they either can't grasp the idea of, I mean, there has to be real food, but there also has to be alien food too for Klingons and stuff.
Exotic looking stuff.
They can't grasp the concept, or they can't even figure out how to be on time. And you know, on a TV show, you can't be late.
Oh, no.
You know, you're costing money. And so I'd seen what he had been going through, and I didn't want to just come right out and say, I know somebody. I wanted him to get desperate first, and he was desperate. And I said, Bink, have I got the girl for you? And I said, first of all, blood is thicker than water. She would never want to let me down, and I know her. She wouldn't want to let you down either. And they became great friends. They had so much fun together. And of course, whenever she made food for you guys, leftovers would come up to the art department. We would get brownies and cookies and
A lot of chicken.
chicken.
Prime rib. That prime rib. Was
I remember we
amazing.
had this set designer, Ron Wilkinson, and Dorothy had made me these sour cream chocolate drop cookies that were so moist, and they were incredible. And, you know, I'd bring a plate of those in, and I'm sitting at my desk, and I see Ron kind of just like roll around the door jamb and chewing gum. And he looks at me and he goes, marry that girl.
Yeah.
Marry her. We were together 32 years.
God bless, man.
And we never had a single fight, not once, not ever, never argued. It was the most beautiful
lady.
beautiful friendship.
Very sorry for your loss. That was a tragic.
It was
tragic
brutal,
thing.
and I have to say, I was suicidal for at
don't
least
doubt
6
that,
months
mate.
afterwards. You know, and I still cry. You know, I was crying every day, and even now,
I bet.
it's been going on 2 years. I still cry at least once a week. It rewired my whole brain to lose someone like that. Yeah. I used to never cry at anything, and now it's like the dumbest damn thing. Yeah. Will make me cry. Like I was watching Wednesday, the Addams Family TV series, and when Thing was the hand, had been nailed to a wall, and it looked like he was going to die. I cried. A disembodied hand. Yeah. I cried for a disembodied hand, but it just like rewired me emotionally, and she's with me every day. I have all her recipes. I one day realized that I've got all her recipes here. I could recreate some of these dishes that she took pride in making for me and re-experience the flavors and the aroma.
It's a beautiful remembrance.
I've got her book.
Yeah, you do, don't you?
Yeah, I mean,
that was the last time I spoke to her.
Last time I saw her,
she
I
rang us up
got her
to-
book. You know what? You had your person. You had your person.
Oh, she was,
Yeah.
I mean, she put together a cookbook called The Captain's Table. It was all her recipes from Enterprise.
Yeah.
And I had even started laying it out and stuff, and Paramount totally shut me down on it. And they said, we don't want to promote a show that's not, why are we promoting a show that's not on anymore? And I just felt like it was a power thing or something.
I don't know.
I mean,
They don't know what they've got half the time.
True.
They don't.
Well, I mean, and then also there's also politics going on and people who want to be in charge or be. Yeah, I mean, how many times have I been on shows where they bring in somebody new, like when we were doing Galactica and we did a spin-off movie called Blood and Chrome, at that moment, the guy who was a big fan, who was in charge, moved up the ladder to somewhere else, and they brought someone in who did not like science fiction on the Sci-Fi Channel. It was like crazy. And that's when they started
That's
having
my
wrestling.
experience with the Sci-Fi
We're going to
Channel.
have wrestling from now on.
Yeah.
We're not doing space shows anymore.
We're going to change the way you spell it even.
Oh, yeah,
I
know.
To like a wig maker.
Yeah.
Sci-fi. Come to Sci-Fi and get a wig.
Lord.
F-Y.
And, so it's like,
We're never working there again.
and she's got little stories in there about you guys.
Yeah.
And she loved you guys.
She did.
She did. She loved you guys.
Loved her.
She was a beautiful
Yeah.
soul.
She's a part of all of us.
Yeah.
You know, we had the luxury of working with her and knowing her and seeing her. And
She was just such a light to be around.
Yeah.
Oh my
wasn't she?
God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
memories.
That's such heaven.
There's a lot of love in our chat right now. We have over 450 people in our chat room, and everyone is
That's
heart
nice.
emojiing.
Hey, listen,
So
I
thank
have
all
to
of you.
say, and everybody out there, that when I lost her, and no one knew until it happened, the support that I got from Star Trek fans, it was just amazing. The letters that they wrote me and the love and the caring, they helped me get through it. They really did,
Bless.
you know.
Yeah, you
Feel
know,
for
we're
you,
a
brother.
family, truly.
Yeah, no, really.
Well, I mean, it's crazy. You go to a convention and you know these people, even if you've never met before, they're your family already.
Oh, yeah.
Instantly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the really interesting things I found over the years of going to conventions is that you have this extended family, many that you've never, old friends who just met. You know, you fall right into a conversation and you're laughing and having a great time. And
That was
you know,
Mark's experience just this summer. He came to his first convention with us.
yeah, it's
And,
it's
My
My
wonderful.
first one too.
And it was Erica's first one.
I almost always go to the Vegas con well, because it's convenient for one thing, you know. But
And the gambling.
you know, there was that Star Trek experience at the one hotel for a long time, which was
Yes.
Oh, at the Hilton.
Forgot to
Yeah.
mention
Yeah.
that.
It was
Herman, of
fantastic.
course, designed that. We forgot to bring that up yesterday.
it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I still
Oh, yeah.
have a complete set of the blueprints of that thing
No
in
kidding.
the garage. But it was
We were in that for a
fantastic.
bit.
And then new owners came in and said, Star Trek fans don't drink and they don't gamble.
Oh,
Oh, boy.
Who says that?
Had they been to one?
Well, they decided that Star Trek fans don't gamble and they're not making, and they closed it. They closed down the
Yeah.
Star Trek thing, and it was spectacular.
It was fantastic. In fact, the one time I went out one time with you, and you know, you'd had a night.
We'd had a night, haven't we? I mean, we're rocking
And we
around.
get there, and Dominic's like,
Oh, that's a bit too real.
"It's a bit much."
Nina.
Fuck, we
Much love to you guys. Keep up the good work. You're rocking it. Thank you, Nina, so much.
Thank
really
you,
appreciate
Nina.
that.
You, Nina.
Joel Clements, watching from Perth, Western Australia. Love the show. Question: which captain is the top of the list to get on the show? I
you
think
mean on our
captain.
show?
Our
Top of the
show?
list?
On our show,
Anyone.
I assume, yeah.
Well, we hope.
We haven't had one. have we?
Scott would be probably
for
you know,
us.
the
Scott
go-to.
Barrows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the right
I
answer.
know.
Yeah.
But Scott's going to be around for a while. We might want to think about a couple other things.
Lord. Carol Watkins, we love listening with Mom. Love Trip and Spock. There you go. Call out to you. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
I take it I'm not there. I'm
You get your own.
Thiz Ruco, just watched American Made and nearly jumped out of my seat with joy when Mr. TRINNEER spoke his lines.
Yeah, I played George Bush
Oh, that's right.
in the movie.
Yeah.
What is your famous line? You pilot?
Are you a pilot?
There you go.
That's an enjoyable movie.
Me too.
It is.
Thank you, Thiz, very
F-15.
much. Tracy Snow, $20. Thank you so much for the support. We really appreciate it.
Really, thank you, Tracy.
It's very necessary and needed, and we're grateful. Punkster NL became a member. Thank you. Welcome to the family,
Punkster.
Punkster. Crimson, thank you at Shuttlepod Show for everything that you do and for keeping us entertained each week. Rich McConville, the Federation Trading Post in Midtown Manhattan was how my friends and I got our Star Trek fix back in the 70s.
When did it
sometimes.
end? The Trading Post.
We started it in like 76, I guess. And it went for about 2.5 to 3 years or something like that. I ended up moving out of state. And I'm not saying it was because of me that it descended
been.
into
Could have
chaos,
been.
but it was because of me. That
Yeah, there we go. A little bit.
Kelly became a member. Thank you so much,
Thank
Kelly.
you, Kelly.
This is our friend Kelly Harper in England. She also runs the Star Trek Enterprise fan page on Facebook. Dawn, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Really appreciate it. I was confused for a second because you got a picture of Scott Bakula.
Dawn looks a lot like Scott. I'm
Yeah.
honest.
Victor Mendoza, Enterprise had the best uniforms. Remind me of the Navy coveralls. Yes, I agree
They
with
look
you.
like space shuttle uniforms.
Yeah.
We called it the Prada jumpsuit.
Oh,
Probably the most comfortable.
It
of
was
the-
very
God,
comfortable.
hands down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I did a cameo on Next
You
Generation
did.
and wore
There you
one of
go.
those
Yeah.
one-piece jumpsuits,
Yeah.
and those things ride up, boy.
I couldn't have been cast in Next Gen or any of them except for ours because I literally cannot touch
Over the lycra.
polyester.
Oh,
Right.
Oh, you were.
I touched your shoulder, and electricity goes through me if I touch
All right.
specifically coarse polyester.
Oh my
It's,
gosh.
that's why
You hear that,
that's
Jover?
one of the many weird things about me.
Could have been quite a performance.
One of the many weird things.
One of them.
All right. Sandra B, $10. This
Thank
is
you,
epic.
Sandra.
Erica looks sensational. Love
you,
Connor's
Sandra.
fedora. Dominic is just plain gorgeous.
Finally.
There you go.
Yeah.
The respect.
And I gotta say, Mark rocks. I have to agree with you, Sandra. Thank you. Dangerous Dak. Thank you so much for the. I don't know if you became a member, or if that's just a contribution.
Is that not Dang Arus Dak? No?
Dang. I know what you're doing, Dominic. I mispronounced. If you watch,
Wait, is there an OG in there?
if you watch the Herman Zimmerman episode that's going to come
You'll
out,
get that
this Sunday or
joke.
next, you'll understand what
We're going to be
talking about.
reprieving that one. For
Here we go. Dangerous Dak. Try number 2. Take 2. Hey guys, make sure you get to Doug designing the NX-01.
yeah, we kind of skipped over that a little bit. Yeah, let's get. Let's
well,
we'll
you're
talk
going
about
to
that
have to have me back.
Well, hell yeah.
Oh. All right, let's keep going on these. We got a lot of people in our chat. Puka Hair. Stan Lee story, question mark.
Oh, Stan Lee story.
All right,
gotta hear
I'll
that.
tell- You know, I mean, as a Stan Lee, it was like Gene Roddenberry. He was like an uncle. I felt like he was an uncle, and he was writing stuff that was just so beyond anything. And then you get people who will complain that he's stealing the thunder from the artist. Hey, let me tell you something. Before Stan Lee, comics didn't have any credits on them. It was Stan who made the artist famous. Yeah, he did it like a movie where there were credits. But, you know, I was in Manhattan, and sometimes I would, you know, stop up at Marvel and actually, you know, go to Stan Lee's office and chat with him. But when we had the Federation Trading Post, we put a museum in the back. And we had original props and things from the original series, costumes and stuff like that. And when you're in Manhattan, you could invite all the newspapers, invite ABC, NBC, the news, and they would come because it's just down the street.
All right.
And so we had this opening of the museum, and I sent an invitation to Stan, and he came. And my mother was there. Now, my mother made me throw away my comics when I was a kid. And so I was...
You would be a very wealthy man, I'm sure.
Well,
he is.
I still
wealthier man.
I recollected a lot of those comics.
Did you?
Yeah. So now I had my mother there, and I'm like, I'm going to introduce my mother, the woman who made me throw away my comics, to Stan Lee. And I brought her up and I said, Mom, I want you to meet Stan Lee. And she says, I want you to know you had more to do with raising my son than I did.
Oh.
And Stan said, the last woman who told me that, her son was in Sing Sing. Fast forward to a couple of years before he died, not that long ago. Luna was doing an autograph show at the airport, and she said, Doug, Stan Lee is going to be there. You should come down and see him. And I'm like, yes, of course, I would love to. And I got there, and Luna says, he's in the green room. Come on. And we go, and he's like the ever-ready Energizer bunny. He's like in his mid-90s or something. He's signing posters and telling jokes. And, you know, he makes you feel like the most important person in the room, you know.
Did you remind him that you'd met all those years before?
I said to him, Stan, I just wanted to tell you that many years ago, like in 1977, I had invited you to this museum opening, and you came, and my mother was there. And she said to you, you had more to do with raising my son. And you said, the last woman who told me that was in Sing Sing. And he burst out laughing at his joke, you know. It was a good one. And I said, I just wanted to let you know that you were my surrogate father. But after about 20 minutes or so, his handler comes in and says, Stan, we got to get you to the terminal to catch your flight. And so he's starting to head out. And I want to say something to him again, and I'm thinking, well, you know, he's seen so many people today, and he's like 90-something, 6 years old. He probably doesn't even remember really chatting with me about that. And as he's about to go out, he reaches for the doorknob, and he stops, and he turns, finds me, and says, goodbye, my surrogate son.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
Oh my goodness. Puka Hair. Pukair, Chris Cushman asks ship of line, question mark, and I want to know NX02 crashed in painting. I'm not sure.
Ship offline or offline? What do you think?
I don't know.
Huh?
Well, I mean, there was a page. I edited the Ships of the Line calendar for like 22 years.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
And it's probably one of Amazon's best-selling calendars over those decades. And we did have a page that I think was done by Pierre Drolet of the NX02 crashed in a desert and had been there for forever. It's a great page. Maybe that's what Pukair is talking about.
Jensen N became a member. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, Jensen.
Daniel Wheeler became a member. Thank you, Daniel Wheeler, for the support.
Daniel.
32nd Street Film became a member. Thank you, 32nd Street Film.
Thank you.
Matt Boardman is back with $10.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks, you guys, for all you do and for having Doug on this week. Always love your show. Feels like home and spending time with family. Daniel Wheeler became Daniel Wheeler, I think he upgraded is what he did. He became a member and then he upgraded to a higher tier. I think he's Warp 2 now. Puka Hair and NX01 refit. I think they want to know about the potential refit of the NX01.
There was a possibility that if there was a fourth season, the ship would have been refit.
Fifth season.
Yeah. Where when I was designing the NX, I would always stop and put a secondary hull on it in case we ever wanted to upgrade the ship, it would work. And I had talked with Manny Cotto about it, and he liked the idea. I don't know that it would have happened, but the NX01 refit appears in Picard Season 3 at the Starfleet Museum. And fans loved it.
Daniel Wheeler has upgraded again to Warp 3. Thank you, Daniel.
Daniel. Everyone follow Daniel's lead, would you?
32nd Street Film, $5. NX is the best, and the J is pretty rad, too. Yes.
Thank you for that. When we were doing, of course, now they're going through letters like crazy. We're up to the G. How did that happen?
It's like hurricanes.
I personally, look, military hardware can last. I mean, look how long the B-52 has been around. That thing is going on it's going to be 100 years old by the time they retire it. Gene Roddenberry always said that the Enterprise was a ship with history. You had several captains before Kirk. And it bothers me when they destroy one every, I mean, it's like tissue paper. But the thing about the J, and I took a lot of flack from people online, and that's fine. A lot of people loved it too. But I find that we kind of get to a place now where all the ships it's almost like cars today, almost sort of look the same. But when you go from the original series Enterprise to the D, that was a quantum leap forward. It was still a recognizable Enterprise. That's what Gene always said. We come upon a still recognizable Enterprise. When they wanted me to do a ship that was hundreds of years beyond Picard, I knew that it had to be a quantum leap forward. It couldn't just be a retooled starship. It had to be dramatically different and still be a recognizable Enterprise. I mean, look, there's no doubt that when I first saw Star Trek the Motion Picture and they had that dry dock, I was like, well, that's really cool, but what does that do? What is it? It can't just be a fancy light holder, And then as time went by, I'm like, okay, it's a printing matrix. They're printing a lot of the structure of the ship. And then they're going in and finishing it. I personally think that the original series ship to the D and then the J does what the D does. It is a dramatic departure, but still a recognizable Enterprise that kind of is showing you something you hadn't seen before. And for some people, that upsets them. Listen, I know everyone loves the D now, but when TNG opened up, they hated Picard. They hated Jean-Luc Picard, and they hated the D. They hated it.
It seems to be a sort of ongoing thing that they usually hate the new.
Well, I mean, it's like, look, before Picard season 3 aired, I think Terry put some pictures up of the Titan that became the G. And they were hating on it. But then I found what you have to do is once you have enough episodes that they came along with you on and had a good time, then that ship becomes acceptable.
Sure.
But until then, it's an interloper.
Right.
Well, there used to be a guy in San Diego, can't remember the name of the company anymore. He just made it his business to collect stuff like that.
Right.
all kinds of oddball sewage strainers that could be used to make. I think on DS9 the Jeffries tubes were made out of sewage strainers.
No kidding.
You know, but you know, they never really gave the show tons and tons and tons of money, even when they were doing movies. The movies were being done on like TV budgets sometimes, you know.
Which is really odd because it literally saved Paramount.
Seemingly, it's been the jewel in the crown there for many decades.
Well, I mean, for a long time, we also had people there who, was it Carrie McCluggage?
Yeah. For us,
My first
initially.
boss. My
He
first
was a
boss
fan.
ever.
Yeah, he was. He loved Star Trek.
He did.
There goes my phone again.
All right. Are you ready?
Heck yeah.
All right. Jamie Somerville from Twitter asks, after the amazing recreation of the Enterprise D bridge, if you could recreate one other set from any Trek series, which one would it be?
You know, I kind of feel like we got to recreate the sets that we were dying to recreate, the original series sets, and then the D was, what an amazing experience it was. You know,
To
Dave
redo
Blass and Liz.
She's great, isn't she?
Oh, she's incredible, you know. And Herman was working on one of the features, and he was still in charge, but it was really Mike and myself who really, you know, directed the set designers
Did such
and
an
stuff.
amazing job,
It
mate.
was, well, we couldn't believe it. We were so thrilled. You know, you got to be kidding me. They're going to let us rebuild this stuff. And then we did it on Enterprise in the Mirror episodes.
Yes,
Through-
yes,
you
yeah,
know,
we did. Yeah.
And that was the Defiant, supposed to be the Defiant.
Right.
So there were little differences, like Herman, you know, made the railing round instead of segmented. And Manny, I think, had said, well, it is the Defiant. So if it was the Enterprise, he would want it to be exactly the way it was.
He knew his stuff, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And,
he
you know,
really did.
well, we lost Manny, you know. Job they
I've
did,
read that
you know.
you, one of your sort of tenets is, you know, deliver, yours and Mike too, deliver lots of choices.
Yeah, give them something to hate.
And give them something to hate.
Give them
that
something to
that they
hate.
know that, and then give, and then you
Well,
can put your
the
best
funny
work
thing
in
was
front of
this. When they were trying to come up with designs for Voyager, Rick Sternbach was the point guy on that. And as usual, they were making him do, I mean, he probably did like 30 different things that were all cool, you know. But especially when you get people who actually can't design it or draw, they want to keep seeing things until there's absolutely no time, and then they'll make a decision. And then sometimes they go back to the very first thing. But
Invariably.
Mike comes in and says to me, we're going over to see Mr. Berman, and Rick has, a design that he's going to present, but we need to give them some stuff that they'll hate. And he said, what can you do in the next hour? Real fast designs. And I did one where it was kind of my fault that all the hulls became stretched. All the primary hulls ended up stretched. I did a ship
You did that?
Yeah, it was me.
You did that?
It was. If you looked at it from the side, it looked like an F-15 almost with a jet intake. And
so it was one of these, this backfired on you, did it?
yeah,
No
it
kidding.
backfired. I remember one of the guys said, "They're going to pick the one you hate," and I didn't actually really hate it. But on my desk, I had a little model of Ray Walston's spaceship from My Favorite Martian, which was kind of like a Jaguar or a Jaguar.
Yeah.
Jaguar.
Jaguar.
Just a jag, mate.
A Jag. And I did, and that's what it was based on. It came from, the Voyager primary hull. That shape came from Uncle Martin's spaceship, which I just happen to have on my desk. And Mike says, I need 3 things in under an hour. Yeah. I like having the parts far enough away from each other where they create a really impressive lines of perspective, And when, we said, okay, they're putting the primary hull closer to the secondary hull because now we're dealing with the Borg, and there's a lot more battles and things
They
going
just had
on.
a square. Come on.
Yeah,
cube
I love that. I love that. I mean, it's like, here's this crazy race that it's all about stripping your humanity from you and taking away your individuality, and they don't even care what the ship looks like. It's just a cube.
Yeah.
And I remember I was at Foundation Imaging. After DS9 ended, I ended up at Foundation, and they were doing visual effects for Voyager, another Borg cube. And I'm like, they gave it to me because I was the only one in the department who did sketches in the visual effects department. And I'm like, you want to redesign a cube?
Yeah. Into what?
What?
Just got back over that last
How about a
sentence.
square?
I'm the only one
actually-
in the visual arts department that can sketch.
Yeah.
Oh, no. It was VFX. They're all working in the computer. But I could do quick gesture sketches,
Right,
where it might
right.
take a few days to build it, Pencil sketches I did. It was UPN at the time, and the UPN logo was, it was like
The circle, the square, and the triangle.
and a triangle, and I'm like, so I did a board cube that was a pyramid. I did a board cube that was,
That was the sphere.
yeah, and I said, well, you put them all together and you have the UPN
The
logo.
UPN logo.
I just thought the whole idea of being given the, the order to redesign a cube, I mean, it's like, where are you going to go with that? But it all turned out great. I mean, we did it again on Picard. I mean, they had some wackier board ships in season 1 and 2, but I always loved the cube, and John Eves and I worked up that design and kept it really close to what we knew and loved.
Go without mentioning Annie Wershing, who had been, her first job in town was on Enterprise. She played my sort of love interest with an episode with Renee, and she was the last Borg queen, and we lost her last year. Yeah.
She was amazing.
She was
an
a
amazing
dream,
Borg
such a
queen.
sweet, yes, an amazing
She was
Borg
amazing.
queen.
Well, that Borg queen had a nasty sense of humor.
Yeah,
and I love that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite episodes, I think it's called Symbiosis. The one where Trip is injured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they grow a clone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that clone
LeVar
grows up
directed that.
fast.
Similitude.
Similitude. That's it. He falls in love with T'Pol.
Yeah.
You fall in love with him, and now they basically have to kill him
Yeah.
to take the parts that they need. And that was Manny Cotto wrote that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was one of the most moving episodes.
About the best episode we did, I think.
Started a beautiful relationship with you and T'Pol,
Yeah, that would have been interesting to see how that went.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was really, really sweet. The way
then they
you
killed
guys were
me.
falling for each
Then
other.
they killed
That was the dumbest damn thing. Holy crap. I totally deny that. Forget
I
it.
think most people do.
Oh, my God.
Hashtag trips.
Dominic doesn't deny it. Dominic, he revels in the fact that I'm dead.
Dead.
We've moved on from
dead,
that.
dead.
Casey Baldwin from Patreon asks, what got you into model miniature building, and how did you break into that area of the business? I'm a huge fan of Doug's modeling work for the franchise. I saw him walking around the vendor's room at STLV this year, but I was too shy to say hello.
Never be shy. Never be shy. Always come up and talk to me. I was mostly involved. I mean, as a kid, I always built models, but I was mostly involved with the miniatures on the show peripherally. Like when we did Trials and Tribulations, Gary would call me and Mike and say, "Can you guys come down and add with pencils, add detail and plating and hull stuff?" Or if like Gary or Dan ran out of budget and they needed a Klingon space station, we would build one out of sewage strainers and
Did
pepper
you
grinders.
use a septic tank or something?
Yeah,
whatever was lying around.
Yeah, whatever you could find. Greg Jean, who we just lost recently, was like one of the greatest of all the Star Trek model builders, and was a huge fan way back. And he was such a fan that, like, when we did Trials and Tribulations, he built the K-7 space station and he built an Enterprise. But he also built a Klingon ship.
That was a whole rebuild for that Enterprise, was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding.
But the Klingon ship, they didn't have a budget for it. And so Greg built it for free.
Wow.
For free. I'm more of a dabbler than anything until I got into CG. And I built the NX. I think the NX was the first ship ever designed in a television art department in the computer. It was unheard of, Right. Everything had always been markers and, pencil sketches up until then. I could render flybys of the ship. Yeah. And they could see it with the light changing on it and stuff like that. And I really got into doing a lot of that modeling, especially on Picard with Terry and Dave. Oh, and that's what I was saying. I've been talking to Dave on Facebook, and I thought he was going to ask me to do graphics. And then when he says, "No, I want you to do ships," I almost had a heart attack, because they look at they'll run you through the mill on that. And but with Terry, it was a dream, because one, Terry really respects me, and he wants me to be happy. And while he will have some notes, he defers to me on these things. So it made it, and Dave Blass as well. And so it made it a joy. I think I built every approval model for a Starfleet ship on season 2 and 3. And the first time the Stargazer appears in the first episode, the next day on the internet was on fire. People were saying, "Oh my God, it looks like a Starfleet ship again. It makes more sense." And they could see how it comes apart, and they take it apart in their head, and they know that if they pull this off, I know what's going to be under there.
Yeah.
And if you don't
That's
do
true.
that, they hate it, and I don't blame them. I hate it.
Right.
So we always, everything that we did for Picard or Enterprise or DS9, the detail that went into those ships to make them real. But when I say aircraft, that for me that includes spaceships and and airplanes. And I mean, the reason the Enterprise from the beginning always had a sense of reality about it is because, one, you had Matt Jeffries, who was a flight engineer on a B-17 during World War II and flew missions against Rommel, and you had Gene Roddenberry, who was a pilot in the Pacific. So with those guys there, the ship is going to have a ring of truth about it, even if some of the sets, and I love the sets on the original series, but sometimes they would have no money, and they would be kind of creaky and theatrical looking. Yeah. But even when they were, there was still a sense of reality to the shapes that Matt Jeffries put together.
Right.
And if you're just doing science fiction, it's going to look like science fiction.
And even some of the sets, as you say, they were theatrical, but the episodes that they were featured in had a theatrical quality to them.
The thing was that if the story, if the story is good enough and the actors are there and you're
the
being
philosophy's
drawn
there behind
in,
it,
you don't care if you look out the window of the starbase and they got cardboard cutouts like they did in Court Martial.
No.
You don't care.
Or that the saloon doors are just in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, well, that episode, they did some really interesting
I
stuff.
loved it.
That was amazing.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
that was Spectre of the
You
Gun.
get to earn
Spectre of the
that.
Gun,
You
yeah.
earn that.
You
from your
earn it,
audience.
Tilly Bell.
Hi, Tilly.
Tilly Bell. Hey,
Tilly.
friend of the show, Tilly Bell.
Thank you.
Hey there, darling.
Thank you for becoming
She's
a
Aussie.
member. We appreciate your support and all of your artwork. You're awesome. And your whole family. Joshua Patton, thought question. Do the real-life aerospace elements of the Annex 1 design tie in at all with Matt Jeffries' discarded OG Enterprise ideas?
Well, the first ship that we tried to get them to do, actually there were two designs. One was Matt Jeffries' sphere. Instead of a saucer, it was a sphere. And it's in the making of Star Trek. We tried to put that by them, but they didn't buy it at all. And then I think there was one time we tried to recycle the DY-100 ships, the con ship. And one of them just said, "It looks like a pencil." And that was the end of that. It only takes one person to come in and make a comment and just torpedoes the whole thing.
Yeah. NX7062. Okay, Dominic stepping up. Greetings to everyone.
Hey, Stephanie.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you for the support. Tim Gormley, Canadian $10. Thank you for the Canadian $10. Doug,
We'll take it.
we'll take the Canadian money. Longtime fan. And we have chatted a few times on Facebook. My 10-year-old loves Ships of the Line. Hope you, Mike, and Denise get to do Trek again on Star Trek Legacy.
Listen, my fondest wish is that we get to do Legacy, because you know what Terry's going to do? He's going to start tying up loose ends
What
from
does
that
legacy mean exactly?
Us.
era. Exactly.
Oh,
us.
oh.
Yeah.
It means
Oh, yeah.
Sit up.
Star-
Look alive.
Look alive.
Oh, well, hell's bells.
Yeah. No, but that's
Someone kick him.
That's what he's going to do. There's so many unanswered
Let's hope.
questions about all those shows.
Right.
And the truth is that, Picard season 3 is directly connected to that era, where the other shows I see as alternate universes.
Tracy Snow, $20. Thank you, Tracy, for the
Thank
support.
you, Tracy.
Loving the show. Could listen to all these wonderful stories all night and not get tired. Much love to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is kind of hilarious because Erica, I think, you need to take a bathroom break?
Oh, please, thank you.
All right. Yeah, no, all right.
Don't flush.
We're going to be sponsored soon by the adult diaper.
Magic Chicken 77, $10. Thank you very much, Magic Chicken.
Thank you, Magic Chicken.
With the success of the DS9, Doc, please share your thoughts on the digital remaster of your show Enterprise and if you think it's even possible with all the digital assets used.
Well, you know, I mean, the thing about when they remastered TNG was that all that stuff was shot on film.
Yeah.
And then later on when they started, you know, like DS9 started doing CG and even Enterprise, I don't know that those visual effects shots, I don't think, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure they were not done, you know, at 1080. You know, I think that they were done at a lower resolution, so they would have to, and that's the problem with redoing DS9, you know. It will cost more than it costs to do the next generation ones because those shots will actually have to be redone and re-rendered, you know.
Right.
Christopher Standard Time, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the support. Bonzo Kilborn, $5.
Bonzo.
Thank you.
God bless you, Bonzo.
Always liked the look of Voyager. Thanks. Live long and prosper, y'all. Live long and prosper. War Dogheim, $20 from the
Bless you, Warm Dog.
Blue Skies of Montana. I see thee. And when we get an in-depth visit to the Mizzou.
He's referring to my
Doug's
office
home
as a
office.
museum, I think. Visit to the museum, a.k.a. Doug's home office.
Thanks, War Dogheim.
I got lots of toys.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll do a Patreon special. So trivia.
All right, trivia. Did Doug's been told how to work the button? It's us three against him.
Yep.
I think we got a good chance today.
I think we do.
As long as we get the button.
That's right.
Get quick on the button.
right.
So when she finishes the fourth go, and then when it's us.
Let's see here. We are playing for. Okay, so you three are playing for Tracy Snow.
Yeah. I'm playing for Jan Rennie.
Okay.
All right, Jan.
Our
Thanks,
newest,
Jan.
shiniest Patreon member.
God
in
bless
the
you,
last 5
Jan.
minutes.
Thank you,
you,
darling.
Jan.
So thank you, Jan.
All right.
right.
And before I forget, I'd like to thank the Random Red Shirt podcast, Zach and Chris. Thank you. They say hello. You've been on their show a
I
few
have.
times.
Thank you,
And
guys.
Oh, those
Thank you,
guys are
fellas.
great.
They loved having you. So.
Those are the guys who are on stage with us during our live event. They're fantastic.
Thank you, guys. Okay, great. Are you ready?
Yes.
Question number 1. In Voyager, what form of currency is sometimes used aboard the ship? A. Latinum. B. Shuttlecraft privileges. C. Holodeck time. Or D. Replicator rations.
Mark,
Who got it? We did. Do you
Latin?
know
Is
this?
it
I
Latin? Is
thought
it
it was
Latinum?
Latinum, but I might
thought
be
it was
wrong.
Latinum. I thought it was Latinum.
We're going with Latinum?
I think it's Latinum.
Latinum.
Mark.
Where's the F-bomb?
It's replicator rations.
Whoop, you got it.
I'm not up on my Voyager.
that
also.
right?
Wait, okay. All right,
I
never
didn't
mind.
hear the
Ding,
buzzer.
What did they get currency for
There
on
we
the
go.
ship?
There it is.
Booze at the bar, right? Didn't it?
But
No?
why do I pay for it? Nobody makes money anymore.
Chris, I'm going to call you back.
I don't know.
I'm in the middle of trivia. All right? Won't be long.
Okay. Question number 2. In what episode of The Next Generation was Data's disembodied head found buried beneath San Francisco?
Oh, just watched it.
A.
Dum, 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 dum.
I already know.
Dum, 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 dum.
Mark,
I already know. I already know. I
Yes.
can give you the answer
Go
right
on
now.
then.
A. Best of both worlds. B. Clues. C. Time's arrow. Or D. The inner light.
Time's out.
Do we get it?
Shit.
How did
Told you I'm
do
good
that?
at this.
It is time.
I don't
You
know.
know that? Oh,
I don't know the answer.
I
Let
know.
me get
You
this
know
around my
Oh,
head.
what is it? What is it?
Yeah, it's Time's Arrow.
It's Time's Arrow.
As a
Time's
matter
Arrow.
of fact, I will tell you that I was in the makeup department then. We had to cast a Brent's face. He didn't want to come in and do a whole head, so we had to clay out the back of his head and sculpt it out. But I had noticed that my ears and Data's ears are almost exactly the same.
Oh.
So I told Mike Westmore, my ears are just like Brent's. And so they cast my ears and stuck them on Brent's head. And then about a week later, I'm standing outside the makeup trailer and Brent walks by, looks at me and goes, nice ears.
He's a smooth talking bastard.
That's right.
In the original series episode, Where No Man Has Gone Before, What member of the Enterprise crew is said to have attended Starfleet Academy with Captain Kirk? A. Lee Kelso, B. Gary Mitchell, C. Ensign Ricky, or D. Captain Shoemaker?
Mark. Mitchell.
Ding, ding,
Damn.
ding. Okay.
There's something wrong with my thing.
Yeah, that's what they say on Jeopardy all the
Am I
time.
pressing the wrong button? What's going
A
on
lot
here?
of girls say that.
Oh, Dominic.
Question number 4. In Deep Space Nine episode The Quickening, what is the name of the disease that the Dominion release on the population of the Teplin system? I'll repeat that. Question number 4. In the Deep Space Nine episode The Quickening, what is the name of the disease
I've seen
that
this.
the Dominion release on the population of the Teplin system? A. The phage. B. The blight. C. COVID-2372. Or D. Santhe fever.
Do we get it?
Mark, I got it. Mine's green.
There's something wrong with my thing.
Shoot.
He doesn't know.
I'm gonna say.
He doesn't know!
I'm gonna say the blight.
No.
Damn.
I know what it
Because
is.
the phage is from Voyager.
Phages from
And the other
Voyager.
two are bullshit.
Damn. Could have had that.
2-1?
3-1.
3-1.
Uh-oh.
We'll do the
Honestly,
last
I
one
think
for
it's over.
This
we need to get.
This is broken.
we need
Do it for fun. Question 5 for fun. In what Next Generation episode does an alien probe control and disable Captain Picard, who wakes up as a Cayman, a resident of the planet
Dum dum
Catan?
dum 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 dum.
A. The Inner Light.
Dum 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 dum.
B. In Theory. C. Q Who. D. Identity Crisis.
I just figured out what you were doing.
We got it. Inner light. Bing. All right, a little bit of salvage.
That's
We
right.
could do like monthly winners and tally you guys up each week.
We could.
So it's Mark. 56.
You broke it.
Star Trek Celebrities.
Did I
4.
break it?
I don't
That
think
might
it's
change.
that.
That might change.
Well, congratulations, Jan Rennie. We won.
This whole thing was rigged.
Nah, I was not.
Where have I heard that?
Yeah.
Connor and Dominic and Doug, please apologize to Tracy Snow for
Sorry,
losing.
Tracy.
Sorry, Tracy.
Tried our
My
best.
thing didn't. It's broken.
Doug's thing didn't work.
Really
My
broken.
thing is
I don't
broken.
know. Is
He knew all the answers.
Well, I knew most of them.
Chris, have I broke this?
Well, we'll go to Toys R Us.
All right. Well, now it's time to play Stuck on a Deserted Island with Connor TRINNEER.
That's right. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So you are stuck on a deserted island for the rest of your life. It's not uncomfortable. And you are given the works of Shakespeare and a religious work of your choice. Now you have to choose from, 5 things really. 4, the most important are your cuisine, your author. You get their complete works. Your cuisine, you get, like, if you pick Italian, you get all Italian food. The author, you get their complete works. Musician, composer, same thing. And your dessert. Say you pick, I want pie. You get
This is
all
too
flavors of
complicated.
pie. We can't let you leave until we've done this.
We'll go through one by one.
And then you get a bonus item.
Okay.
I like to say that the most interesting one was when Jimmy Darren said that he wanted a Ferrari on his deserted island.
Just
To
for
do
shits
what?
and
I'm not
giggles.
sure. He was like,
You can't.
what are you going
drive
to do in it? And he was like,
He just wanted to sit
I just sit in it.
And remind himself of sitting in it in his driveway on Mulholland Drive.
That's right. All right, so let's start with your author.
My
The complete
author.
works of someone you would spend the rest of your life with on a deserted island.
I've always been a big Edgar Rice Burroughs fan.
Yeah,
All right.
There you
Goes
go.
all the way back. All the way back.
All right. There you go. We haven't had that yet.
No, we haven't. And odd that you wouldn't choose something more sort of of the genre that you have spent a lifetime in.
I spent
would
a
say that-
lifetime in it.
Are you sure?
I was going to say,
Oh, I'm
Edgar Rice
thinking-
Burroughs is right in there.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I'm not thinking. Didn't he do Pulp Fiction and?
Edgar Rice Burroughs?
No, no, no.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Who's the other Burroughs I'm thinking of?
William.
William Burroughs. Ah,
Yeah, Edgar
sorry.
Rice Burroughs, Tarzan,
Right.
John Carter of Mars.
Right.
Ah, of course. Right.
Not Naked Lunch.
Not. I'm thinking of Naked
Yeah,
Lunch
yeah.
and
All right. So we've got your author, your musician / composer. whatever.
Composer. Wow. Bernard Herrmann.
Don't know Bernard
Don't know
Herrmann.
Bernard.
Who's
He did
Bernard?
the score for Citizen Kane. He did the score for Psycho.
Right.
He did the score for Taxi Driver.
Well, now I know him.
Okay.
Yeah.
That guy.
Bernard Herrmann.
Yeah.
Bernard Herrmann.
And your cuisine.
Korean.
Look at you. You're
You're
an
the
OG.
first Korean barbecue guy. I tell you, I have to say, good choice.
Good choice.
On a desert island.
There's a lot there.
Yeah. You're never going to die of cholesterol. You're never getting fat. You eat that all day
All
long.
day long. On a little
Yeah.
thingy.
Sticky rice. Oh,
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah. No,
bad.
my wonderful girlfriend is grew up in Korea till she was 23 years old, and she's been introducing me to Korean food.
All right.
Oh, it's so good.
It's such an adventure.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so good.
Your dessert.
Ice cream.
There you go.
Nice.
You get all ice
You
cream.
get all ice cream.
Yeah. Right.
Different flavor every day, every meal.
Okay.
And your bonus item. The only thing about the bonus item is you can't bring another person onto the island, and it can't get you off the island.
What's the question again?
It's a bonus item. It's a bonus item.
Oh, anything I want?
Yeah.
Yeah. Except for those two things.
What were the two things again?
Not a
It
person.
can't get you off the island, and it can't be a person on your island. I'm sorry.
You got to be alone, bro.
Yeah.
Maybe. Can I have a monkey?
Yeah. You can.
I'll take a monkey.
Who had a dog? Somebody had a
we've
dog.
had
Might be
dogs
dogs
on.
on the island already.
You can have a monkey. Why a monkey?
I love
had a
monkeys.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Why not?
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
When
Well,
they're not eating
Michael
your
Jackson
face.
loved him.
Oh,
well, on that note,
This is where we end the live episode.
that's right.
There you go. We'd like to thank Alamitos Vineyards for this gift. It is a Cabernet Sauvignon out of San Jose, and that's for you.
wow.
I hope you enjoy
Thank you,
it.
Doug.
Yeah.
Oh, and look, my parrot's on it.
There you go.
There you
You
go.
have a parrot.
Yes, I have
How
a
old's your parrot?
43.
And they live a while, don't they?
Yeah, I'm worried about that. I'm like, die.
Shut up. Just shut up.
He just
before you
never
go.
runs out.
I've one last question for you. Your tattoo.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I've been looking at
well-
it.
What is that?
Just put the Alamitos
this is
wine
Dorothy's signature.
I thought it was.
Oh, that's lovely.
I thought so.
And I had this crazy experience. I think it was about 4 weeks after she passed. I was starting to come out of my fog a tiny bit, and I noticed that all her rose bushes looked dead. And I was like, my God, I've killed her rose bushes. And I started watering them. I said, I can't be responsible for this. And then a few weeks after that, I'm walking across the yard and I see one pop of color. It's a single red rose. And I cried. I felt like it was from her. And then I had a crazy experience. A few days after that, a friend of mine who I never thought would recommend this, he said, Doug, I think you should talk to a medium. And I thought that was a crazy idea, but I respected this person. And he had produced reality shows. And he said there was one guy that I think he's actually legitimate. And if he could, I think I told Denise that, Okuda, I think she rolled her eyes, and I said, look, if he just hit me with one thing he couldn't possibly know, I'd be impressed. And he didn't hit me with one thing. He hit me with a half a dozen things that were beyond belief. And the one thing that came at the very end was he said, Dorothy is handing you a single red rose. She says you'll understand.
Oof, oof.
Oh,
Oh,
And then I had the
chills.
rose added
that's
to the
beautiful.
signature.
Wow.
So,
It was insane.
that's beautiful.
It was
mate.
absolutely insane.
That's an amazing.
That's
story.
amazing.
The line from that Sinead O'Connor song that Prince wrote for her, isn't it? All the flowers in the backyard, honey, all died when you went away. God bless, mate.
Except for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, she sent me that single red rose.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that is a way to end an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being
You
here.
have
We're
to come
so
back.
grateful.
Please,
Yes.
please, please.
Anytime, just let me know.
Please come back. Yes.
I would love to. This is fun. We had a lot of fun.
Thank you. It really has been. It's been great to see you, man.
Great to see you guys.
You're an absolute mensch.
And I know that Dorothy is smiling.
Oh, bless.
Being with you guys.
Yeah, and we'll see if we can get that clip up because it is hilarious.
It is hilarious. It is hilarious.
Says everything about her and her cooking.
I also put together, you may not have seen it, for a while, they were sending VHSs, I guess, they had to be VHSs up, of the dailies. And when something funny would happen, I'd save it. So I have a little blooper reel that wasn't put together by the show. And I'll send you guys links.
Of Enterprise?
Yeah, of Enterprise.
Am I in them?
Yeah.
It's basically you, babe.
There's a scene where you guys are playing, Clancy Brown was in it.
Oh,
You guys played like
we're
a
playing like
football
lacrosse
game.
thing.
Lacrosse.
Yeah.
And I put together a whole thing where you're getting the shit beat out of you. He got the shit beat out of him in the sequence. It's
That's
hilarious.
Right, that's right.
And,
Big Clans.
And it was kind of like the football game in the MASH movie.
Yes, exactly.
By the time I got done with it,
that's
I even
awesome.
used the same music.
Oh, please send. Yeah.
Well, let me know what the hell?
You can turn them off.
Mitch, I got to call you back. Okay, bye. That's Mitch.
Oh, look at it. He knows we've been he's talking about me.
Well, Doug, truly, it's been fantastic having you on, and
Can't wait to have you back.
yeah, seriously,
It was great fun.
There's a lot more to talk about.
Oh, there's lots of stories still.
Yeah.
Lots of stories still. And
Not
especially
one about me yet.
Finger favors.